mentioned something that is critical. Throughout this evening, we've wondered about injuries, and it sounds like one of the law enforcement personnel, one of the law enforcement members in that neighborhood was able to confirm that someone was taken there to the hospital. You just have to think, with as many explosions as there were, it was unfortunately not going to be possible for no one to get hurt in this. And the question tonight is, what are they dealing with at area hospitals, and how many people have been hurt in this? But we know, at least on that street where Gary was, someone has been injured.
Christina Rex was in Andover about 2 hours ago. She may still be. And she got the reverse 911 call to be evacuated. Christina, give us an update, if you can, about what's happening where you are.
Yeah. Hey, everyone. So what's been happening is we've been evacuated for nearly 2 hours now in Andover. We are about a mile or so from where some of the confirmed fires are happening. In the last half an hour, I've seen Andover Fire, Andover Ambulance, and police emergency management by, the Ricca Fire went by. Ton of traffic.
You know what? We're gonna try to fix Christina's cell phone connection if we can, and then go back to her.
I think she's talking about the number of crews, though, that she's still seeing come into those communities, seeing firefighters from Bill Ricca. We've heard about crews truly coming from all over the area, parts of New Hampshire, Boston Fire assisting in all of this. Just a concerted effort to try to put out these fires and to make sure that people are safe.
Haverhill Line, we're talking about the MBTA commuter rail. The Haverhill Line service beyond North Wilmington is now suspended because of what's happening there. Passengers will be diverted again to Woburn, Anderson. We mentioned that earlier. And Lisa, you had mentioned that some of the people who were on that train were told that they will be bused to where they need to get to. Is that what they were saying?
Yes, and it can be really disconcerting when you're in a situation like that if you don't know what's happening. Typically,
Absolutely.
It's just a problem on the line. But when you start to get messages from friends, you get a little nervous. And apparently the person who sent me the message said that all the communication through the MBTA, at least on this particular train, was good. They knew what was happening. They knew there would be buses. And they felt relatively calm. They felt like, all right, we have the information we need to then continue on once we get to our stop.
We also just got this important commuting piece of information from Mass State Police. All off-ramps on 495 from exits 42 through 45, that's the Lawrence, Andover area, are being closed. On-ramps will remain open to allow evacuation. So, in other words, excuse me, if you're on 495 right now, you're not getting off in the area where all this is happening. If you're in one of those towns, or if you're in Lawrence, you can get on the highway to leave the area. But as you can imagine, those highways are packed right now with cars who are slowed down, first by the amount of vehicles, and secondary by the curiosity factor of seeing all the smoke rising from these areas.
And we've heard from a number of officials the warning that if you have Columbia Gas, you should evacuate your house in these communities. We also heard from North Andover, if you have natural gas, period, you should evacuate. Just got a message from someone in Andover who is wondering if your gas has been shut off. In other words, if you're in Dan Roach's situation and your gas has been shut off, can you stay in the neighborhood, or should you also evacuate? I think there's a little bit of confusion tonight whether you should stay where you are or whether you should go ahead and go. Looking at live pictures now as firefighters continue to try to extinguish the smoke that is pouring from that upper window right there. We've seen flames shooting out of this residence and a number of other residents throughout the evening. And here they are just trying to get the upper hand on this and make sure that there are no hot spots that will then flare up and threaten the other properties that you see around this triple-decker. Again, we're waiting for a news conference at 7 o'clock, so hopefully many of the questions that we've been asking throughout the night will be answered. This is a pretty significant area and a pretty significant operation, so there's still bound to be questions, but we should get some news right at 7 o'clock.
Again, from Mass State Police, so far 39 confirmed explosions and or fires in that area. Christina Rex is back on the phone now, and Christina, we can hopefully hear you a little bit better this time around. What's happening in Andover?
So I just heard you guys talking about 495 and the traffic. We are along Central Street, which actually leads down to Dascom Road to get onto 93, and the traffic is just at a standstill, and it has been for 2 hours, which is when we were evacuated 2 hours ago. Traffic completely, stopped, cars moving maybe every 5 minutes, just a couple of feet, and actually one of my neighbors told me it took them half an hour just to get half a mile. So pretty backed up here because of, obviously, all of those explosions of fires, whatnot, which the closest one, I believe, is a little less than a mile away from us that we've gotten confirmed from where I'm located in Andover. Again, we're evacuated about 2 hours ago with a call from the local police. And I would say about 30 to 40 of my neighbors are outside right now. I know they said in Andover, at least, if you have nowhere to go, you can go to the Whittier Senior Center. I was trying to tell you guys a little earlier also, as far as emergency crews, I'm not in direct sight of any of the fires, but we've seen so far go zooming past us Andover Police multiple times, Andover Fire multiple times, EMS. We saw Massachusetts Emergency Management go by probably about 5 minutes ago. I saw Bill Ricca Fire go by, so certainly more than just the local crews here to help out. I know I heard you mention that people are a little confused if they can stay out of their houses or go back in once the gas is turned off. I know a lot of my neighbors were expressing the same sentiment. Everybody's choosing to stay out of safety right now, but we did have, my father was actually running around turning off everybody's gas in the nearby homes because that's not something, you're necessarily trained to do, is how to turn off your gas. So everybody was going around helping each other turn off the gas. We have all the animals out in the neighborhood right now because nobody wants to leave them in the house, obviously, and everyone's just kind of standing around figuring out exactly what we should do as the cars on the street are at a standstill and those emergency crews continue to fly by.
Christina, while we have you on the phone, just got some information about Andover here. This is from the town manager and the police chief. Andover responded and put out 35 fires. And at the peak of this emergency, there were 18 fires burning at the same time. We're told right now all of the fires in Andover have been extinguished, but that firefighters are going to be in Andover all night. At least 3 people in Andover have been injured, including a firefighter and 2 people in homes. The Andover Senior Center and now the Andover Youth Center have been open. These will be open for residents who've been displaced. And as the night goes on, if they need to open more facilities, we're told that they will do it. But we're beginning now to get some of this information. Christina, at least in your neighborhood, are people still just basically out on the street, or have they left the neighborhood?
Most people are just out on the street. Some people considered moving out of the neighborhood, but then when you see the traffic on the street, the way to get out is just jam-packed. So it would honestly be faster to walk. We did see some people walking from their homes down Central Street towards Dascom Road to try and get down there. I know, I don't have exact addresses, but I know some of the fires were down. You're about to hear sirens go by me, I believe. They were down, near the area of Andover High School, and in that area, some of the homes were down there, and that's about half a mile or less from where I am right now. So we actually saw a lot of people walking in that direction, and all the emergency crews were heading in that direction. And I actually see a few of them heading out of there now. We just saw a police car and an ambulance head in the opposite direction back towards downtown. Traffic is at a standstill, so everybody seems to think it's better to just either stay where we are or take a walk. That seems to be the attitude, at least in my area right now.
Christina, if you can stay on the phone, that would be great. We did just get some information about injuries. Lawrence General Hospital tells WBZ that they are treating 4 fire victims from these gas explosions, and that they've also put in place their emergency management plan, which basically means more doctors, more nurses, all coming in for anyone else who may be brought to that hospital. But again, that's the information from Lawrence General. 4 fire victims being treated there.
So 4 in Lawrence and 3 in Andover, including 1 firefighter. And we will be getting more information about the injuries. This was the big concern initially. Who was in these homes? Where were they in proximity to the explosions? And anybody who was injured, could they be taken out of the homes safely and quickly? And, now we're getting a sense of just how widespread this was, how many fires were happening at one time. And when we're talking about 18 fires burning at the same time in Andover alone, and then you look at this map and realize that the most significant number was actually in North Andover, and there were other fires burning in South Lawrence. This is a tremendous strain on first responders. This was a 10-alarm response in Andover, which, is the maximum response there. But basically what it indicates is that they just needed help from everyone, as did Lawrence and North Andover.
I got to be honest with you, I don't know how they're doing it. This is
just incredible. It
is a widespread area. Firefighters are coming from all over the area, but even with emergency lights and sirens on, it's still not going to be a quick commute to get there to help out. Again, the number that was given out by Mass State Police I'd say about 15 minutes ago, that they have 39 of these reported fires now and explosions as well. But 4 people, that's the number that we have of people injured, at least taken to Lawrence General. Gary Brode told us about one other injury as well, so the number may be, the unconfirmed number may be as high as 5 right now.
Well, this is really helpful. We have Rich Serino on the phone with us now, the former chief of Boston EMS, former director in Washington for FEMA. Rich, so glad to have you with us right now, because I know that you have a sense what these first responders are going through. First off, have you ever seen anything like this?
Nothing like this, certainly in this area at all, where you've had such a large number of fires and explosions scattered, not all one right next to each other, which in multiple towns as well. But this is where the training that people have been doing for many years on many different scenarios, what we call training for all hazard, is that using unified command and looking and seeing how all the different agencies, departments are working together, and then supported by the state resources, both the state police, and I'm sure the emergency management resources will be coming in as well. And how do you start to look at it? There needs to be long-term sheltering or short-term sheltering, that people are going to be out of their homes, certainly in the 39 homes, but the towns that everybody's evacuated that has Columbia gas. How long are they going to be evacuated? Where are they going to go? These are all questions that they're looking at and addressing now. And the primary response, obviously, is stopping the fires and stemming the gas from continuing going through the lines.
And Rich, I'm assuming that you've been on scene of a fire where gas is involved. Are there extra precautions that have to be taken by rescue crews when gas is added into the equation?
Yes, you want to be careful, because there could be secondary explosions. That's why the very good information to have people get out of their homes, even if they were not on fire or exploded, because another explosion could happen easily. And so having people out of their homes was important as they continue to find out what the cause was, and as soon as they can depressurize the gas lines.
How challenging is this, Rich, to be responding to all of these different situations, not knowing whether you're up against another danger? In other words, I have to think that, on the one hand, the first order of business is getting people out of these homes if necessary, putting out the fires and trying to extinguish the smoke. But you don't know in any of these cases whether you're still at risk. How do firefighters cope with that kind of unknown?
Well, it's a job that the firefighters, EMTs, and police officers do every day, is going into the unknown. But the practice and preparation on how to respond to these, which they all public safety personnel have been doing for years, is what prepares them for days like today. And looking at each individual fire, each individual home is a disaster for that individual homeowner, and the firefighters and the EMTs and the paramedics and the police officers at each individual one. And then it's incumbent upon the leadership to get together, is to look at this on a more systematic level. There's the tactical level, and then look at the systematic level and how the leadership is coming together, working together in unified command, and how people are able to look at the issues ahead of time, so they're able to be there and address those issues.
And it's interesting, not to sound like Bill Belichick, but you have these 39, 40 fires, but it really is one fire at a time. Each individual crew is dealing with their fire that they're fighting. So while it is a much bigger operation, and we talk about how many people are responding, you know, for each one of these firefighters, they're dealing with the one that they have in front of them. And this is not an image we had seen yet, Lisa. This is clearly the remnants from an explosion, the whole side of this house blown out sideways.
Yeah, Rich, it's interesting. As we've been talking to you, we've been showing both a devastating fire. When you were talking about the disaster to these people's lives, we were showing a home that was fully engulfed. But what we're looking at right now, and a picture that we have not seen until now, is an explosion that looks like it just blew a home, parts of a home apart, like, you know, shooting parts of it right out the back. Is there a danger tonight of hot spots with these fires, and will we see firefighters staying in these communities all evening?
Oh, I'm sure you'll be seeing firefighters in the communities all evening, probably throughout the night, until they're 100% sure that the situation is safe. but also have to now look at the recovery going forward for each individual family. It's catastrophic when it's your home for one individual family. Now you're multiplying that times at least 39. And how in organizing those efforts, and at the same time you have populations of almost entire communities that are out of their homes, and how long is that going to be? So all those issues are being addressed, as well as looking at where they have to, deal with those individual fires as well. So this is a multifaceted problem, multidisciplinary problem, and that's why having the unified command, the support for the unified command, is coming together.
Well, all that training certainly paying off.
Rich Serino, thank you so much for your insight. Of course, years of experience, and that you could certainly tell. Thank you so much for your information. Really appreciate it tonight. This picture that we're looking at right now.
Just devastating.
This house, and this is what I had feared earlier. When you hear gas explosion, this is the type of picture you normally see. You don't just see a smoldering fire that then rages through the roof. This is an explosion that ripped this house to shreds, and to see part of the chimney, Lisa,
on the
coming
SUV.
down, crushing the SUV. The SUV, it worries you because the car in the driveway may mean that someone was home at the time. We hope not. But this is the most devastating damage we have seen as far as an explosion goes in this case, not just a fire.
And, this is, again, 39 homes that we know of that have been damaged in some way. This is the worst damage from an explosion, certainly, we've seen. Gary Brode is at another home that was damaged in this series of explosions. Gary?
Well, Lisa, David, right after we got off with you, we told you how there was debris in the street, the street over. Well, we decided to check it out, went around. That is the scene from what we were talking about earlier. This is right at Chickering Road here next to Cabot Road. As you can see, that home is demolished. We were told, one of the officers said that someone was taken to the hospital after the explosion. And he told me that a couple of people were outside of the home at the time, but one person was taken to the hospital. You can see everything there seems to be a total loss. Roof is caved in. The columns on the ground at this point are sideways. Really, there's not much left. Certainly will not be salvageable at this point. But like I said, we were told that one person was taken to the hospital from that area. Now, right before we came live here, we talked to a younger, maybe mid-teens boy who frantically came over here with his family as they drove by. And it's his friend who lives there. He said he's been trying to reach him over and over, continues to call him, unable to reach him. So really impacting not just people in this community, in this neighborhood, but everyone, friends and family from all over coming to see what is going on right now. And as I say that, several fire trucks are coming down the street at this point, convoy of fire trucks coming down. You can see from Newberry, fire trucks. So everyone's helping out. Also, a few minutes before that, Columbia Gas crews were on scene. We heard them say we shut the gas off to that home as well as that home. So a lot going on right here at Chickering Road here in Lawrence. We'll continue to give you updates as soon as we can. But for now, we are live here in Lawrence. Gary Brode, WBZ News.
Wow, Gary, that is just a devastating picture behind you. Gary mentioned that one person had to be removed from that house, taken to the hospital. And just reiterating what David mentioned a moment ago in Lawrence, 4 fire victims that we know of, and they went to Lawrence General. They've also activated essentially their emergency management team there, ready to respond if they should have many more injured people. But now we are starting to see some of those rather devastating images of the force of an explosion in these homes, blowing the walls apart, literally blasting the chimney off the home and onto the family's SUV. And just really startling damage in some of these pictures.
And one of the reasons why we may not have seen this earlier, the view from the helicopter, you see smoke rising, you zoom in, and you're seeing these homes that are on fire. But now we're seeing homes where, even the home that Gary just showed, no signs of any fire, just an explosion. This certainly...
But, I mean, just look how dramatic that line is between the upper floor of the home, and the lower floor, that clear, blasting mark, and the home almost looks like it's off its foundation there.
The back deck was actually caved inward, and the most dramatic picture was the chimney. We lost, I think, the image there from Sky Eye. It's going in and out, but Wow. The chimney down on top of the SUV as well. Again, fingers crossed that there was nobody home at that house at the time. Seeing the car in the driveway gives you cause for concern, obviously. But I'm wondering now, Lisa, how many of these we'll see.
Right, because most of the afternoon and evening we had been doing exactly what you said, and that is following the smoke to these homes that wound up like this one did, smoldering at first and then burning up. No flames, we would have had no way to know that that home was damaged.
Even when we pulled wide and we sort of counted
right.
the plumes of smoke,
yep.
you could only see maybe 5 or 6 plumes of smoke, which makes you wonder how many homes there may be that there was no fire, there was no smoke, but instead just an explosion that ripped the house apart.
Well, you have a lot of people tonight in these communities, Lawrence, North Andover, and Andover, who are unsettled, who are worried about their friends and potentially their family members. We heard Gary say that in talking to the teenager who passed him, he was concerned about his friend who lived in that home that had been so badly damaged. Just a great deal of anxiety tonight in these communities and in these neighborhoods. And first responders doing incredible work there, trying to make sure people are safe and trying to stop these fires before they spread to other properties.
We are still waiting for a news conference that is expected to begin any moment now, where we'll be hearing from Lawrence officials, possibly some Andover officials as well. We mentioned about a half hour ago that the FBI had sent us a statement just saying that they're coordinating their efforts in the area as well. It seemed as though the FBI was going out of its way to use words like, we do this always, this is normal, as not to frighten people. You hear FBI, you think of perhaps something that's more coordinated, but the FBI is saying it's in the area as it normally is when there's a situation that multiple things explode or burst into flames. Moments ago, we did have the shot there of the microphones that are set up. As soon as somebody comes forward to speak, we will go to that live to get the latest information about what folks in these 3 communities should be doing, where they should be going, and what they can do at this point.
And this may actually influence their decision. We've just learned that power is being cut now to Lawrence, to Andover, and to North Andover. So for people who are wondering, should we stay if we've turned our gas off, this may help you make that decision. They're asking again. They're going to be shutting the power off in Lawrence, Andover, and North Andover to ensure that does not pose a danger. A while back, Cheryl Fiandaca, in looking into Columbia Gas, mentioned that one of the dangers here when you have any kind of a gas leak is that a spark will cause an explosion, and that spark can be caused by something as simple as turning on a light in your home, flipping on the air conditioner. This is a clear measure of precaution to prevent further damage and potentially further injuries. There will be no power in those communities, and they hope that will mitigate any existing threat by the natural gas that has been there.
The population of Lawrence is obviously very large. North Andover and Andover are also pretty sizable towns. So you're talking about tens of thousands of people, probably well over 100,000 people, maybe close to 200,000 homes or homeowners that are going to be affected by this tonight with no power as well. And this is a picture, I would love to know if it's 495. I'm assuming it's 495 and not 93. State police mentioning that 495, as you see all those cars, you can see the headlights of these cars, 495, cars would not be allowed to get off of the exits 42 through 45. That's the Andover, Lawrence, North Andover area. The cars would be allowed onto the highway so that they could evacuate the area. Christina Rex mentioning that it was also having an effect on 93. Dascom Road that gets to 93, she said, was at a standstill as people try to get out there. The center of your screen there, that's the Merrimack River running through. Of course, it separates Andover from North Andover and Andover as well. And then this, again, is that live picture from Sky Eye of a home that was just blown to bits. A car in the driveway with half a chimney sitting on top of it.
And we saw, look like members of a crew kind of sifting through some of that there. This is a pretty dramatic measure getting back to the power, to shut power off to 3 entire communities, which tells you that they are concerned there may still be a threat. We're expecting a news conference. 7 really is 7-ish in these situations. And just to reiterate what we said a few moments ago, as we show you these pictures, all of the fires in Andover, and at one time, the town manager says there were 35 fires in Andover all told today, 18 of them burning at the same time. All of the fires in Andover are out. So that is some good news there for crews who can now focus on other areas. But you look at this map, earlier we had 23 fires and explosions. We're now up to at least 39, and potentially some that either we don't know of or that officials have not yet been able to confirm. Simply put, it takes a while to get around to all of these different communities while simultaneously dealing with people who've been hurt and putting out the fire. So the investigation may well reveal that there were more than 40 fires and explosions today.
And again, the most important piece of information to come out over the past 5 minutes came from Mass State Police, and that is that electricity will be cut off to Andover, North Andover, and Lawrence, just as an abundance of precaution or caution is taken there to make sure that nothing else can be sparked. But you're talking about a whole lot of people who may have thought, well, maybe in a couple of hours I can get back into my home, and now are thinking, okay, they're not going to have power tonight. They're not going to have gas. And so there may be a lot more people headed to some of these schools and middle schools where the Red Cross have been setting up. We did know that the Red Cross set up in North Andover at the high school there. So if you're in North Andover, really if you're in any of those communities and you need some help, then you can go to the Red Cross over at North Andover High School.
And Phillips Andover had just sent everybody at the school to their sports field. A friend of mine was telling me they're going to just be feeding everybody there, knowing that there's no way people would have been able to focus on dinner or anything else. So if they're at the school, that's where they're going to be. And you see these crews right there apparently sifting through some of that and trying to break apart something.
Yeah, this, as those utility crews pulled up, they actually look like they're town workers. It did look like they had North Andover on their vehicles, but it's unclear what they're trying to get to as they chip away at something. But this is that home that we've been hovering over that was just, it's unrecognizable at this point.
And you see how badly it's splintered and how far the pieces of the home actually were ejected, you know, from the structure as they knew it.
Police also on scene there as well. But you can see the frames of the windows blown to the ground, a whole wall blown to the ground there. That looks like a couch.
Yeah, furniture, couch
turned
cushions.
Upside down. Chimney on top of an SUV. You know, French doors blown open, and just devastating to see. Again, your only hope is that there was nobody home at the time. Wow. So, fire crews continue to work, and you have some new information.
Yeah, we have the Methuen Police Chief, Joe Solomon, on the phone with us now. Joe, thanks so much for joining us. We know that everybody in your department has been working furiously today. Can you give us the very latest from where you are?
So right now, the FEMA and the state police and Lawrence police are in the command vehicle. They're getting a briefing with Columbia Gas. The Mayor, Rivera, and Lawrence Police Chief Bass will be out to address the press. They're just running a little bit late because they're going over specific information in reference to the incident. Right now, it's been quiet since about 6 with new fires and explosions. There's still mutual aid arriving from every single possible location you could think of in Massachusetts and New Hampshire. It appears that the worst of it is over, and we're just, again, everything's preliminary. We're not sure what the next steps will be. We do know they're shutting off gas to all the citizens in Lawrence. Lawrence has sent out an emergency alert that there's a couple of shelters open. Methuen Police and myself came to aid Lawrence. Havel Police Chief De Niro and his people went to North Andover, and Tewksbury Police Chief Tim Sheehan and his people, along with NEMLIC, the Northeast Mass Law Enforcement Council, responded to Andover. So there's police from all over Massachusetts, and particularly Merrimack Valley, between local, state, federal, assisting here. And the best we can do is, you know, continue to monitor things and hopefully have some more answers for you as soon as the mayor comes out of his press briefing.
Joe, what did you think? I'm just curious. You know, you initially hear about this. You're called into service. Give me a sense, when you pulled up to the first of these properties, what went through your mind?
Well, actually, on the way here, I came down 495 south, and to the right of me was Lawrence, and left of me was North Andover, and all you can see is billowing smoke on both sides, and it's sort of like video you see on TV when there's a major hurricane or a war somewhere. We just see smoke, smoke, smoke. And first scene I arrived on was a house that had exploded. They had triaged the individual that was in the house, and then my officers were basically taking calls and assisting warrants, going to calls to triage injured people and evacuate neighborhoods. So basically our job was respond to as many calls as you can and then evacuate every neighborhood that a call came into. So it was kind of chaos and hectic. It's what you'd expect, but it's what we trained for. And I think everybody acted fantastic, and let's pray that nobody dies and the injuries are not serious.
The Methuen Police Chief Joe Solomon joining us on the phone tonight. Just to be clear, things in Methuen unaffected there, but the chief, as so many different cities and towns are doing, responded to the Lawrence area to help out some of his comrades in this time of need. And Chief, you talk about the training. How do you train for something like this, something that is so widespread? 3 different towns, miles between incidents, summer fires, summer explosions. How do you train for something like this?
So what we do is we train with tabletops and drills, but we train for basically what you're training for is command and control, because cops know what to do, firefighters know what to do, and ambulance attendants and EMTs know what to do. So we just want to command and control, set up perimeters, move people in, and we practice this on small scale and large scale. It's more about training for command and control. And by the way, everything's chaos when you arrive. Everybody's running around. There's cars going back and forth. After 5 or 10 minutes, you gain control. It always happens. You set up a command post. You start detailing people to hot spots and locations, and then you assign fixed posts. We don't have to really tell anyone what to do that's on the street. We just got to tell them where to go because they know how to do their job. So really, we do drills. We just drilled with Lawrence a few weeks ago for a shooting in a school. And although it was a shooting in a school, it's the same thing. Arrive, it's chaos, it's craziness, people yelling and screaming, gain control, name a commander of the scene, because there can't be a Lawrence police commander, a Nemlik commander, a fire commander, a state police commander. There's one command post, one person in charge, and that's what we drill, because we all have big egos. We all want to be in charge. We drill that. This person's in charge. You follow orders. And we really revert back to the military structure. What I call it is controlled chaos. It's going to be chaos. Make sure it's controlled. Make sure you don't lose your mind. Make sure that you treat people immediately and respond to as many calls as you can, and then you start creating call lists. And really, it went just like that. Immediate craziness in the initial first 10 or 15 minutes, and then as you saw, all of a sudden, that look you see in people's face, the panic look, started to go away, and let me just do my job came through. And I have to say, I'm so proud of all of them, and honestly, Chief Bass is amazing what he's done in such a short time being in control of Lawrence. You can't ask for a better commander for a situation. And I know, speaking with Chief De Niro in North Andover and Chief Sheehan in Tewksbury, because I'm kind of the go-between for them, they were amazed at the work that Chief O'Keefe and Chief Gray did in their city. So we're just lucky that in Merrimack Valley we have excellent leaders, and we have excellent command staff, and we have fantastic officers. But in a situation like this, what you see is everyone's command staff here. All Lawrence's leaders are here. All my captains and lieutenants are here. So everyone has to, you bring your brass out. Your brass takes control of different individual situations. My people know how to train and cross-train. You're doing the traffic. You're doing the outpost. You're doing the triage. You're doing the call reporting. You're doing the logs. So we all train like that. And, if we had to train for a situation and it had to go as good as I believe this went, then thank God it wasn't a mass casualty incident, which I don't believe it will be. So luckily, it's a major incident that maybe can be another learning experience, because every time when we had the Malden Mills fire and we responded to that, it was exactly the same chaos initially, but we learned from it. So I just say I'm very proud of every first responder that I've had contact with today. It's joyous to be a member of an agency when you see this wonderful work going on in such a critical time. And I'm just proud of everybody in the state came through, MEMA came through, the governor's office. So this is a true collaboration.
Well, Chief Solomon, we have been in awe all afternoon and evening of the work that your crews have done out there, the police officers, the firefighters, the EMTs. We so appreciate it, and we appreciate your time. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Chief. Really do appreciate it. Let's go over to Paula Evan now. You have some new information that just came in from Andover.
Well, and it really speaks to what the chief was just saying, David, because we had given the update of the situation in Andover, and the public safety officials there kind of gave a big overview update of what's been going on there since 5:01, when Andover Fire struck a 10-alarm response, which is their maximum fire response for a situation like this. They said the problem was a lot of resources were diverted by concurrent 10-alarm situations in Lawrence and North Andover. So all of these departments so stressed. MEMA did immediately send 2 additional fire task forces to help with the response in Andover. And so, as you had said, Lisa, just a short time ago, Andover Fire Rescue responded to a total of 35 fires at the peak of this situation. 18 of those fires were burning at the same time. So as we've been kind of fanning throughout the area with our crews, looking at this map from state police, you can see how vast the area is, how many different situations required response so quickly in that 5 o'clock hour. And of course, then the town had asked residents to evacuate. That appears to be underway. At least 3 people we know injured in Andover. That's 1 firefighter and 2 civilians. And the chief notes that police resources came to play as well. The Massachusetts State Police, MEMA, the State Fire Marshal's Office, and fire departments from as far away as Boston, Needham, and Belmont came to respond. So just to give people that update, if anyone might be listening, coming home from work at this time of night, for residents who've been displaced or they know they're commuting home, which this is a normal commute hour for a lot of people, you don't want to go near your neighborhood or probably can't even get there. The Andover Senior Center and Youth Center are open for those residents. Firefighters are staying on the scene throughout the night, even though those fires in Andover are extinguished at this point. But you know that those centers will be really busy throughout the evening. And that's just the update from the town of Andover, Lisa and David.
And we have North Andover, we have Lawrence with similar situations. Paula, thank you so much. Chief Solomon from Methuen just a moment ago said that the Lawrence mayor, Dan Rivera, and some of the officials were getting a briefing from Columbia Gas. And I think when we do hear from them, he mentioned they're running a little bit late. We thought they'd be taking the news conference at 7 o'clock. But when we do hear from them, we should be able to get some answers about the gas main, about what kind of work was underway at the time. I mean, at least those preliminary bits of information they should have. We know now to some degree the extent of the damage, but perhaps this will exceed 39 homes and businesses. And without any question, and before we even get to the news conference, what we know tonight is that there are dozens of families in these communities that have lost everything that was in their home. And this is the beginning of a really tough period for them, and that's before we get to the injuries.
And there's sort of a secondary story that is sort of developing now, and that is the power being cut off to these 3 communities, which brings a whole second level of obstacles and challenges. 10,000 homes, we've been told, in Lawrence, the power has been shut off to, and then you bring in Andover and North Andover as well. We were talking about the pure scope of people affected. The population of Lawrence by itself is 80,000 as of 2016, so we're just talking about tens of thousands of people affected, number one, and then as you mentioned, Lisa, people who have lost everything tonight. Then there are the people who have been injured, and we pray that nobody has been killed at this point.
All right, we have Mike LaCrosse, who is also live for us tonight. He's been moving throughout some of these communities. Mike, give us a sense what you're seeing right now.
Lisa, I'm actually not too far away from Chief Solomon here in the parking lot of the Showcase Cinemas just off of 495. This has turned into the staging area, and I'm witnessing a lot of what the chief spoke about, the coordinated effort here. Just imagine if you've ever been to a movie theater, how large these parking lots are. The entire parking lot is filled with first responders. There's ambulances standing by. The Massachusetts State Police Command Center is here. The Lawrence Police Command Center is here. The State Fire Marshal's Office Command Center is here. I believe I saw Methuen's Command Center here as well. There's also a number of buses just lined up that say, emergency services. Those are ready to move as well. We're starting to see, there's a handful of folks that appear to have been evacuated from their homes that are in a section a little far away from me here in the parking lot that are on some of those buses. when you mentioned the response from some of the communities really around the entire state as well as New Hampshire, earlier I saw Nashua Fire, Salem, Hudson, Concord, we have Peabody, Lincoln, Wayland, Boston. Around the perimeter of the parking lot where we're set up, the fire trucks kind of parade in with their lights on, and then they appear to be moving out as well. We are, again, still waiting for that news conference to happen. It was set for 7 o'clock right now. We've seen several different types of meetings happen away from where we're being kept here at the movie theater parking lot. There's several different types of meetings that we're seeing happening at the Lawrence Command Center, and then just a ways over from them, there appears to be some EMTs that are meeting as well. I've spotted the Red Cross here on scene. So this is a very, very busy scene here at the parking lot at the Showcase Cinema, where all the first responders have gathered. On our way down here just before 7 o'clock, I know you mentioned that they'll be turning out the power into the entire community. When we were traveling around the city, power was already out in some areas, so there were no traffic lights, so they were blocking off some of the major intersections. But it was a little bit dicey trying to get around some of the side roads with cars not stopping, kind of just trying to find their own direction around as well. People were even trying to flag us down because we had our yellow hazard lights on that we use when we're working on the highway. People trying to flag us down to try to get some answers as well. When we were on scene on Springfield Street, the site of one of the gas fires, I had a chance to speak with one of the Lawrence police officers, and he said that anybody in the area that he has spoken with in terms of first responders and just everyday people have been grabbing wrenches that they have, and they've been helping people shut off the gas to their homes. So again, we're here at the parking lot at the movie theater here just off of 495, waiting to hear from the mayor and the chief for the update today.
All right, Mike LaCrosse, thank you so much. We did just get some new information from Mass State Police, which now says that it has 70 confirmed fires, explosions, and investigations of gas odor inside homes. So the last number was 39 confirmed cases of explosions and fires. They've also added in now possible leaks from within homes. So the number is now 70. That's the number they're using as they respond to the area as well. And an important piece of information that was just put out from Andover Police on Twitter, reminding people that in gas-serviced areas, if they shut your electricity off, do not use candles. So that is the response that you might normally have during a snowstorm. Anytime you lose power, go grab the candles. Do not do that. You could be putting yourself at danger. Of course, if there is a gas leak in the area, you light that candle, there could be a major problem. So that information just coming out from Andover Police moments ago.
That's right. And there's a very good likelihood tonight that they'll be opening additional facilities as shelters. This has started with 2 in each community, but it was very clear in the last bit of information that we received that they were open to opening other facilities, knowing that there would be people who wouldn't have a plan until later tonight, who are just finding out now that they're not going to have any electricity. As you mentioned, David, candles are out of the question. So really, for some people, staying in their homes is not going to be an option, and we may see more of these other shelters, if you will, open up. Again, the Red Cross is also working in that community. And right now we see the firefighters who are still working to ensure that on this triple-decker here in Lawrence that there are no hot spots that are in danger of flaring up. But the number 70 is just striking. I mean, we started with 23, which we thought was a lot. And to have that many, which includes the investigation of leaks, speaks to how widespread this was and how taxed these crews were tonight.
And you can see, Lisa, this one triple-decker they've been working on for a while, and you can still see the flames popping through the left side of the home there. You add in now, this time of year, that they're doing their work in the dark. They're trying their best to illuminate some of these neighborhoods with spotlights and lights from their fire engines. But this is an ongoing issue at this one particular house in a neighborhood where the homes are packed together fairly tightly. But you can see the flames still coming through this particular home.
And the real question tonight, how many people have been hurt in all this? We don't know how many. We do know because Chief Solomon from Methuen mentioned it a moment ago, they would get to these scenes, they would triage people who had been injured and then send them on to the hospital. But we don't have those numbers as well. It's much easier at this point given all of the crews that are out to count the structures that have been affected and the homes that they're investigating, but the number of people still is up in the air. We know people have been hurt. We have not heard of any fatalities, and we hope that there won't be any tonight, but we hope to get more of those answers, too, when officials from Columbia Gas and from FEMA and from Lawrence address the news conference.
And it seems like from Gary Brode that there was an injury at the home on Chickering Street in South Lawrence where he was, where there was an actual explosion. Didn't look like a fire, but a home that had been basically leveled by an explosion. We also had that other home that we were over just a short time ago where the whole thing was just blown to bits. Chimney on top of the SUV, the back deck was gone, the whole side of the home blown sideways. The fear is that there could be some major injuries, at least there. The minimum number we have, I believe, Lawrence General said that they had 4 fire victims, and
Andover had 3.
Andover had 3, although we don't know if those Andover people were taken to Lawrence General, right? So it's possible that those numbers have been counted twice.
Right.
But then the injury that Gary Brode talked about as well. So at a bare minimum, we're talking about 5. And then there's this home here. This was the one that, is this the one that Gary Brode was in front of, or is this the home, this was the one that Gary Brode was in front of on Chickering Road, where there was at least 1 injury. It didn't sound like, although we don't know. I'm not
Well, he did mention that there were 2 people outside the home, and they were not injured.
Yes.
So the good news there is that some of the people who were at this residence were not inside the house. Unfortunately, at this point, as we give you a sense of just how terribly this area was affected today, we're losing the daylight. So we're not able to show you live pictures of some of these homes, but we do have the video earlier of the explosions and just how shocking that was after an evening of covering fires and seeing that billowing smoke that the chief described, driving down 495 and seeing that smoke on both sides of the highway. Then, when the fires were out, to be seeing that very, very serious damage, the destruction, if you will, of some of these homes that were blown apart.
It's beyond words what we're seeing at some of these homes, and the thought now could be that we may not see another one of these homes. There may be another one out there that has been leveled to the ground. We won't see it, at least from our helicopter, because of the loss of daylight. But there's a possibility that there are more out there, which is just a very scary, scary situation. This one home, this triple-decker in Lawrence, you can see how many firefighters are still on scene there. And of course, when we were on ground level, we could see many of the people who live in that neighborhood, presumably coming home from work. They seemed frazzled about what they were seeing and about what they may see when they get to their home.
Gary Brode is live in Lawrence. Gary's been in a number of different locations for us tonight, giving us a look at the damage there. And Gary, I want to send it back out live to you.
Lisa, so far the worst damage we have seen is here on Chickering in Lawrence, right at 23 minutes. See if I can get out of the way. Maybe you might be able to see a little bit right now. Crews were just here looking through the rubble a little bit, trying to find what they can. We also saw Columbia Gas crews coming by, checking to make sure gas is shut off in this entire area. I did talk to a Lawrence police officer earlier who said that there were a couple of people around the home, outside of the home, when there was an explosion. He did tell me that one person was taken to the hospital, did not say the extent of the injuries, but this whole neighborhood has been evacuated. We have seen a lot of fire crews coming in and out, not just on this street, but several others, including just one street down, where I actually talked to a homeowner. He tells me that his wife was in the home at the time. She did not smell smoke, but there was an explosion. And I'm going to let you hear from him right now.
I find out, well, actually, my wife gave me a call when I get out of work and says, there's a fire, there's an explosion around here. And when I got here, so that's what I found, two fire trucks working in my house.
Is everyone okay?
Everybody was okay. My wife was able to get out of the house, and everything is safe. So we really don't worry about any other thing. Well, actually, it started on the basement. The basement, from what I understand, my wife says, the boilers blow up. So when she sees all the smoke, so that she get out of the house.
Okay, now you just heard that they're telling everyone to get out of the homes now, evacuating the area.
Correct, yes, that's what they say. So the neighborhood right now is just waiting into the authority says you can go back home or whatever.
How bad's the damage in your home?
For what I understand, it's very bad. And the basement is kind of total lost.
Just minutes before that interview, state troopers were coming up and down the streets, evacuating homes, telling everyone to get out over the loudspeaker. We have seen just a couple of people outside of their homes right now, kind of checking out to make sure what's going on. But a lot of people have their lights off, but you can see a few still do. Now, earlier as well, we did talk to a friend of, he says, he's a friend of one of the boys that lives here, teenager, maybe around 15, 16. He said he's been trying to get a hold of his friend for hours, has been unsuccessful, has been calling him for hours now, still has not been able to get a hold of him. He's obviously very concerned. So this is clearly a very fluid situation right now. We're going to give you updates as soon as we can. We are here in Lawrence. Gary Brode, WBZ News.
Yeah, Gary, quick question before you go. You mentioned state police going up and down the street, warning people to evacuate, telling them to evacuate. Are most people gone now? Are most people off that street?
Most people have been gone for quite a while now. I mentioned I saw just a couple of people. A little further down, maybe a street down, I saw one gentleman kind of standing outside of his home. A few people walking around outside, you just kind of checking to see what's going on. But it doesn't appear that there's a lot of people inside their homes at this point. There's not, and I say that basically because there's no lights on right now. So yeah, it looks like most people have evacuated this neighborhood.
All right, Gary Brode live for us in Lawrence. Appreciate it, Gary.
So we are still waiting for emergency officials to hold what was supposed to be a 7 o'clock news conference. Obviously, at this point, getting the information together that is correct and most helpful is of the utmost importance. So that's what officials are doing, and then they will pass along all the pertinent information for the people who are affected by this. Left-hand side of your screen, the highway that runs through these communities, Route 495, you can see just absolutely packed with cars tonight. The headlights of cars who are trying to get through that area. The off-ramps from 495 to the area, exits 42 through 45 closed down. People can't get off there for good reason. They don't want any more road traffic in the area, but they are allowing people on. So if you're in that area and you have your car and you want to go see a relative, you want to go see a friend, and you want to jump on the highway, you can certainly do that. Because it looks like it will be a night in which you're probably not going to get back into your home.
Right, and a lot of people, no question, going to be getting out there. We saw the traffic. Traffic was very, very heavy, even coming down from New Hampshire. Earlier, we talked to Dan Roach's wife. A lot of congestion and a lot of confusion, and that was unavoidable despite all the good information we've been able to get. Just so many questions tonight, and hopefully Columbia Gas will be able to answer some of them. We know that they were going to be working, and we're working on lines in Lawrence and in that community, and what went wrong we don't yet know.
The North Andover superintendent tweeted out moments ago that there will be no school tomorrow in North Andover because of what's happening here. You can absolutely bet that there will be no school in Lawrence or Andover as well tomorrow. And to that end, we should mention the Red Cross shelters that have been put in place, or the reception centers as they call them. Partham Elementary School in Lawrence, that's on Haverhill Street, East Haverhill Street. Partham Elementary School, you can go there. The field house at North Andover High School, which is closed tomorrow, you can go there. That's on Osgood Street. The Andover Cormier Youth Center at Whittier Court in Andover. So if you're in Andover and you need a place to go to the youth center on Whittier Court. If you're in North Andover, go to the high school, the field house, and if you're in Lawrence, you can go to the Partham Elementary School. Red Cross will take good care of you there.
And we do know that there are still police officers coming from around eastern Massachusetts, from the Boston area, to go up and work throughout the evening. They're going to need a lot of support up there. These crews this afternoon certainly tasked with the immediate job of putting out the fires, and as the chief mentioned, trying to get the situation under control in which was controlled chaos. But even at this hour, we have firefighters who are coming up to support the firefighters who have been there all day, and to just stand in these neighborhoods to make sure that everything is safe. Cutting power, gas is cut, and you see the danger that they faced earlier with the smoke pouring out of these residences after the gas explosions. In some cases, homes obliterated by the force of the explosion. And in more cases, it seemed, we saw this, a fire that started with a gas explosion, like the explosion that homeowner just described to Gary Bro, the boiler in the basement that blew. His wife ran out, nobody heard at his house. But then the fire that started in the basement, burning up through the structure and then ultimately through the roof. It was heartbreaking earlier to see a home in Lawrence, a beautiful home, smolder, burn, and then become fully involved before firefighters could get it under control.
Mass State Police, by the way, now updating. We mentioned the 3 exits that were closed on 495 headed through that area. You can add exit 41 as well. So you can't get off of 495 at exit 41. And on Route 93, the north and southbound exit number 45 to River Road is also closed now as well. So the traffic implications are for both 495 and Route 93 as well. One of the reasons why it's such a popular area for people is that there are so many highways that run through these communities. We're talking about 150,000 people live in these 3 communities, and easy access to highways, one of the reasons why they're so popular. Both of those highways tonight are just a complete mess with traffic.
And easy to get to New Hampshire as well. So for people who work in New Hampshire, these are popular places to live. Unfortunately, tonight, very hard to get around there. You just mentioned the additional exits that are going to be closed. This is going to be a situation that will continue all night. We know that the FBI, as just a matter of protocol, is now part of the investigation. The NTSB has joined the investigation. The governor is aware of what's happening and has been in constant contact both with the first responders there and also with MEMA. MEMA's been activated, the Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency. This is a full court press after an emergency of the highest order today in these 3 communities, Lawrence, Andover, and North Andover. Clearly, there have been people who have been injured. We do have those reports confirmed. How many, we don't know, and no reports yet of any fatalities.
We heard also from the FBI this afternoon. It seemed like just as a matter of how they do things, the FBI saying that they're on the ground coordinating with local law enforcement as well. Very quick to point out that they normally do that, that it's something that is a matter of course when there is a major emergency like this, when there are explosions involved, when they're set over a large area, the feds get involved. So it seemed like they went out of their way to make sure that people don't read too much into that. Of course, in this day and age, people are quick to wonder if there is something more coordinated, and the FBI just saying this is something that they always do in a situation like this.
But we do know that Columbia Gas was working in that neighborhood as well, so that should at least to some degree put minds at ease tonight that this was in all likelihood, at least by virtue of what they know now, an accident, not a nefarious act, but they're here to investigate.
And, you know, in a situation like this, we have viewers, we have friends who contact us while we're up here on the anchor desk, having electricians and plumbers writing to me, and careful not to pass along information that I'm probably misconstruing. But there are a lot of people wondering why the flow of gas, which is supposed to be regulated as it came into a home, why that didn't happen in many cases, and why however this happened, you know, one of the people who seemed to know a lot about gas was emailing me saying that as they vent the lines, they're supposed to do certain things. Whatever happened here, they will figure it out over time, and really it's probably of less importance right now. What's most important is that there aren't more of these, that further injury doesn't occur. And to that end, again, Andover Police saying, you don't have electricity tonight, do not light a candle. Last thing they need is any type of ignition in any neighborhood.
Now, I'm getting messages from friends whose children are in the Andover school system being told that their school will also be canceled tomorrow. So North Andover and Andover, we are told, will have no school tomorrow. And for the very simple reason that it's unclear exactly what kind of electricity they're going to have, what kind of gas they're going to have, and whether people will even be able to get around in those communities. Tonight, we're seeing the gridlock on 495 there. These were pictures, obviously, that were shot earlier, video from Sky Eye all over those communities earlier today, when really what we were seeing was this. And this was an early picture. This was one of the first structures we saw that had been affected by the explosion. You see that sort of wispy white smoke coming out of the back. That was the first indication that something was wrong. And at first glance, you think, well, that was probably something that could be put out pretty quickly. When you consider that this scene or something like it played out at dozens of homes all over the area, you realize how difficult it was for first responders to get there.
Trooper Dustin Fitch with the state police just tweeted out moments ago. Now, we've reported many times how they've asked people if you have Columbia gas to evacuate. Well, now Trooper Fitch is saying that teams are being coordinated in the area now to go block by block to ask people to evacuate. So just getting the word out through local officials, getting it out through television and radio and through social media, apparently not enough, because the troopers and local police will be going through and asking people, please leave the area.
Just to make sure that they've got no one who is...
Sure.
And in some cases, I would imagine that becomes necessary because you have to go into homes to make sure that people are okay and that they can actually get out.
No question. And there are always people who don't want to leave their home. They say, well, I don't smell anything. Everything seems to be fine.
You've turned the electricity off now anyway.
Turn on my little flashlight and I'll be fine. So they'll be going through to make sure that those people leave as well. About 30 seconds ago, up on your screen, you saw a firefighter being let out of one of the homes there in Lawrence. We don't know if that firefighter is counted among the injured or whether or not he had to be taken to the hospital. It appeared, and that was very early on, that he was sort of wobbly on his feet, that he needed to come out to the fire engine, the fire truck, just to rest a little bit. But these are some of the earliest pictures we saw. And one of the things we commented on, Lisa, was the slow burn. The fact that there didn't seem to be much panic outside. And we had commented on the fact that with a slow burn like that, with people not panicking, that maybe, just maybe, everyone was able to get out without any problem, that maybe there wouldn't be any major injuries. And then, as time went on, we started to see at least 2 homes that were just blown apart.
Obliterated.
And that really makes you worry about major injuries.
Let's get to Mike LaCrosse. He is live, and he's right there near the command center. Mike?
David, Lisa, we're still here waiting for the news conference from first responders, the mayor, the fire chief. So if I do duck out of the way, it's because they'll be heading to the microphones that we have set up here. Over the last hour and a half we've been here, we've seen countless numbers of firefighters from surrounding communities come here and start to stage and presumably get assignments to go out and help in the communities that have been affected. We've seen firefighters from all over. There's a steady stream of those trucks. They come in, they have their lights on, then they seem to proceed out onto Winthrop Street and go into, again, those areas that are affected. I can confirm the power is now off here in this part of Lawrence. Earlier, when I did a phone interview a few minutes ago, the power was still on where we are. They brought in lights, which is why it is lit up here. Besides the firefighters, there's also state police here. There is the state fire marshal's office. There is MEMA. There's also, I'm not sure if my photographer John Dorman can just maybe pan over to my shoulder. There's a number of ambulances that are over here in this parking lot standing by, waiting as well. There's also a lot of buses that are being used for folks to go on there and spend some time, presumably folks that have been evacuated from the areas. If you've ever been to a movie theater, you know the size of a movie theater parking lot. So as we pan, you can see just how packed this is with first responders. Again, we are still waiting to hear from officials at this news conference that was set to happen at about 7 o'clock. Obviously, they're still working through all the details, getting the most information, the best information before they come out and brief us. I can tell you early on our travels, when we did speak with a few police officers and first responders out blocking the roadways and on the scenes where some of those fires were, they say this is unlike anything they have ever seen before on their time with the department. And some of these guys have been on the department for 10, 20, even longer than that. But again, we are still here at the staging area. This is the Showcase Cinema parking lot. It is completely taken over by first responders and the media as we wait to hear from them, hopefully in just a few minutes from now.
The training definitely paying off. Mike, you've also seen Columbia Gas there as well, right?
Yes, when we first got on scene, I want to say around 6 o'clock, 6:15, we were over on Salem Street, and there were a large number of Columbia Gas crews out in the middle of that roadway. That roadway was blocked off, and they had some heavy equipment there, and they were cutting up the road. There was a good-sized hole in the road on the portion of Salem Street where we were at that time. There was a lot of other Columbia Gas crews coming in, trying to work their way through the community as we were trying to get around as well. But as you imagine, with all these roadblocks, it was tough for even them to get around.
All right, Mike LaCrosse, thank you so much. Andover Police had mentioned that they put out all the fires in their area. We don't see in the darkness the smoke that we saw earlier, but we know that there's at least that one fire still going in Lawrence, that multi-family home that we've been watching. We haven't had an update in North Andover as to the fires there, but we did see that one large colonial that had been burning at last check. And it's hard to know why there's such a delay on this news conference that was supposed to start at 7 o'clock. Almost makes me wonder, and again, I don't even know that he's in the area, but almost makes me wonder if they're waiting for the governor before they start this news conference. He did put out a statement earlier just basically saying that they're coordinating with the local authorities and that they're watching over the local response.
And they also will no doubt be in touch with all the hospitals to make sure that people are accounted for. You mentioned the fires. We know that at least in Andover, they're all out.
Yeah.
But just think about this. There were 18 fires burning simultaneously in Andover alone. And it just gives you a sense of the chaos that played out earlier today. And I suppose the other question, too, is does darkness hamper the ability to get some of the answers that Columbia Gas will be asked to provide? Who knows?
Sure.
But it would have been impossible to get into that scene, to do anything underground, certainly when these explosions were happening because of the risk. So how much will we be able to learn tonight? We don't know, but we certainly have a lot of questions.
Or whether or not there's the possibility that they know exactly what happened, that it was one of those things like,
right, this
don't
was a
let
mistake,
that happen.
And that's what happened.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And you mentioned a moment ago 18 fires burning at once.
Just in Andover.
In Andover. Andover, a fairly quiet suburban town. How many days of the year do you think that firefighters battle two simultaneous fires? Never mind 18.
And not being able to call on North Andover and Lawrence because they're dealing with their own crises there.
Thing. So they're calling Tewksbury, they're calling Wilmington, Methuen, Woburn, North Reading. Just an incredible work being done by our first responders today. This is that fire that you and I, Lisa, watched. That bay window in the front, there was just a little fire. A lot of it was in the bushes in front. Didn't look like much. Then all of a sudden the whole thing was gone.
Right. And there was clearly no way to save this by the time, it reached that point. This house is clearly a total loss. Neither of the homes next door seemed to be damaged. Firefighters were able to control it. But just a devastating situation for this family and for families all over that area. This was something that came without any warning. People get a notice when gas crews are working in their neighborhood. And again, I don't mean to point too directly at that, but it's the one bit of information we have that speaks to what played out earlier, possibility anyway. People knew that the crews would be there. They knew that they would be working, that they were improving their service with their work. But what played out today happened without any warning.
We can see, ask our director here on air if it's possible to put up the images of that one home that had the chimney that fell onto the SUV, because my biggest fear is for the people who lived in this home. Fingers crossed, really hoping that they weren't home at the time. The car in the driveway worries me. But that home, Lisa, and we'll get it as soon as we can, I actually apologize to the control room for putting them on the spot. Finding the multiple pieces of video that come in is a Herculean task, so I apologize for that. But that one home that we saw, a very large home with the pool in the back, everything is gone there. The couch from the middle of the living room was blown into the front yard. The chimney busted in half.
And so much of the house shot so far out the back. I mean, it gave you, and that would have been actually at least a floor above the actual explosion. If the explosion happened in the basement, as the rest of these seem to have, the impact was such that it blew the second and first floor of the house out. I mean, damaging just about everything, all the way up to the chimney that you mentioned that landed on that SUV in the driveway. So that was clearly a violent explosion. Was that closer to the problem itself? Was that closer? Was that sort of the point of impact? We have no way of knowing tonight, but that was the most dramatic picture we've seen all day of damage from the explosion.
Or is it just that the different infrastructures of different homes handled the high pressure of the gas differently? As we look at the live pictures over Lawrence right now, I just want to give you a quick programming note of what's going to happen here as you're watching Channel 4. At 8 o'clock, we're going to turn you over to primetime television. As soon as the news conference comes on, we will come back on the air live to give you that. In the meantime, at 8 o'clock, you can switch over to TV 38, WSBK, where we will continue to monitor everything that's happening live. So I know that's a lot to sort of take in, but basically what you need to know is as soon as that news conference happens, we will have it live for you here on Channel 4 at after 8 o'clock. And in the meantime, you can switch over to TV 38 at 8 o'clock to continue to watch this live.
But just to reset with some of the information that we have tonight, if you joined us in the last few minutes, what started after 4:30 with a series of explosions attributed to an overpressured gas line, we now know has resulted in 70 explosions, fires, or investigations of gas in homes. We know at least 5 people have been injured. We have no word of fatalities. The gas has been cut in most of these communities. We're talking about Andover, North Andover, and Lawrence. South Lawrence in particular was an area the mayor wanted to evacuate completely. We now have police officers going street by street, using their megaphones and such to clear people out of the neighborhoods to make sure that they've evacuated. And there's also no electricity in those communities tonight. The electricity is by natural grid. As a precaution, that's been cut tonight as well. No school in North Andover tomorrow. No school, we understand, in Andover. And we're guessing there won't be any school in Lawrence either. And what we're waiting for now, David mentioned it just a moment ago, is the news conference where we'll see FEMA, we'll hear from Columbia Gas, the Lawrence Police Department, and a number of other officials who are in charge of the response to what has been a singular emergency in these communities. We talk about 10 alarms. That was playing out in each one of these communities today. And gratitude tonight to the communities that came in, the first responders from surrounding cities and towns to help, because it's all making a tremendous difference in places tonight where people are unsettled, where they don't know necessarily whether everyone they love is safe, and where they need some sense of calm. That, to some degree, is being provided.
And almost on cue, Lawrence schools have canceled for tomorrow as well. So no school in Lawrence, no school in North Andover. I don't think we have official confirmation from Andover yet, but you say that one of your friends who lives there has
just got the, yes,
that there is no school there as well, which is what we sort of assumed with 150,000 people living in those 3 communities. No electricity, no gas. Upwards of 70 explosions and fires. Of course, there wouldn't be any school tomorrow. And the Red Cross, by the way, set up in many of those areas as well. Lisa's going to be leaving me here on the anchor desk here in just a moment. We'll see you back here for the WBZ News at 11 o'clock.
Absolutely, be back, and then we're going to take the live news conference on BZ as soon as it happens.
So again, programming note, as soon as we have that live news conference, we will have it for you live here on Channel 4, where we get the very latest information on this ongoing major emergency situation north of Boston in the Merrimack Valley, North Andover, Andover, and Lawrence, all without power tonight, all dealing with a major situation, upwards of 70 explosions and fires in that area. Again, when the news conference happens, we'll bring it to you live. Paula, Evan, and I will be live over on TV 38 in the meantime. Have a great night. Be safe.
And thanks for joining us for WBZ News at 8 o'clock. Obviously, we are following the breaking story we have been since late this afternoon. You're looking at live sky-eye pictures at the scene in Lawrence, where we have been following these massive explosions and fires. that have followed a gas leak situation. Our Liam Martin is going to be coming up for us live from the scene. I'm joined here at the anchor desk by David Wade.
So again, power off in all three communities, crews trying to get a handle on this obviously very dangerous situation. Liam Martin is on scene. Let's get to him for the very latest. Liam?
Well, David and Paula, a catastrophic event, that is for sure. More than 70 incidents now confirmed by Massachusetts State Police. That is the latest number for them. And they have warned that that number could grow as they try to get their arms around the extent of this incident. 70 explosions, fires, or reports of odor across Lawrence, North Andover, and Andover. At least hundreds of people have been forced to evacuate from their homes. If they do get natural gas to their homes, they've been told to get out for a precaution. And we know of at least 4 injuries at this point, though Lawrence General Hospital, the nearest hospital to this situation, has said they are prepared for multiple casualties. And the response to this incident has been massive. We arrived here on the scene just a short time ago. There are hundreds and hundreds of fire trucks and ambulances from all across the state and, in fact, into New Hampshire as well, as they have called Lawrence, North Andover, and Andover for mutual aid from just about everywhere where people can come from. So how did this all begin? At about 4:30, reports started coming in of explosions across this area, and it then spread from there. We don't yet know what the original source was, although Columbia Gas says that there was some sort of overpressurized line that could have led to an explosion, and then that triggered a series of explosions from there. Here on the scene in Lawrence, this is the staging area for both the press and for a lot of the first responders, again, from all over the state and into New Hampshire as well. We are waiting for a press conference at which they will probably tell us the extent of injuries, the extent of the incidents, and, of course, trying to figure out how this all started, David and Paula.
That is the million-dollar question tonight, Liam. Thank you so much. And we will go back to you as soon as we can, of course, as we await that news conference live up in Lawrence.
In the middle of all of this chaos, confusion, and fear, people dealing with practical matters, schools closed now in Lawrence, Andover, North Andover. Our Lisa Greshy is joining us from North Andover. She is at the high school there tonight, and you say it's a very emotional scene there, understandably, Lisa.
Paula, it really is, and that's because people are still showing up here to North Andover High School. Some of them have lost their homes, others haven't been back home to check.
I just got home when the fire alarm went off.
The Red Cross is setting up shelters throughout Andover, North Andover, and Lawrence. At North Andover High School, they are beginning to set up cots, trying to order food, and right now, giving out water.
People that need a place to stay, we'll shelter them, we'll provide food, and then over the next couple days, we'll provide casework and recovery assistance for people that might have had direct impact.
Families have come here leaving everything else behind, only grabbing a few items and their pets. Rachel Wood came right from work, only knowing the home 2 doors down was already on fire.
I just thought to myself, what can I grab in 5 minutes? And, you know, safe box, computer, and booked it out the door. So, but I mean, I'm alive, so that's good, but I don't know how other people are doing right now because we don't know what's going on.
The Red Cross cannot stress enough, if you have gas lines through your home, to leave your home and come to one of these shelters where they're going to do their best to take care of you tonight. David, Paula?
All right, Lisa, and you know, what were people telling you as they were trying to figure out what to do in their own neighborhoods? It seemed, we talked to Dan Roach and other people who live in that area. People were just out on the streets. It seemed frightening to not know where another explosion might come next. What were people telling you they did in that immediate hour?
Just so much confusion, Paula. People were coming here saying, my home wasn't on fire, but my neighbor's home was. It was smoking. There were firefighters there. A cop told me to leave. Imagine someone telling you that you have to leave your home and you just got home from work. So definitely an emotional night here at North Andover High School. People are just trying to get some answers, talking to neighbors, but they're seeing a lot of their neighbors show up right here tonight with them.
All right, Lisa Greshey live for us in North Andover. So, of course, what we're waiting for at this point is a news conference in Lawrence, which had originally, David, of course, been scheduled for 7 o'clock. Officials hoping to give an update. But as you can imagine, watching the scope of the scene with well over 100,000 people involved in 3 towns, look at the traffic on the roadways. You can imagine the kind of confusion and need to make sure that all of the information is accurate, that every official has had the chance to get together. And so when this news conference happens, they're giving out accurate information for people who are wildly confused about whether or not to go find accommodation somewhere else, go home. Many of these people have no home at this point. From these heartbreaking pictures that we've been watching of homes devastated by fires that were sparked after the explosions because of the gas leak. And so at any moment now, we're waiting for this news conference. Our Mike LaCrosse is standing by, and we'll be hearing from public officials about what the word is tonight. We know just the Andover Fire Department said that they accomplished putting out the 35 fires in their town, but they're going to stay on the scene all night, of course. There is still a real sense that people are not in safety in these towns, and they don't really know what's going to happen next.
The live picture you're looking at right now is the command center, which is outside the Showcase Cinemas. That's where we've been checking in with Mike LaCrosse and Liam Martin. A moment ago, you could see the highway, which is just covered with cars. Yeah. State police closing down the off-ramps from exit 41 to 45, which means you have a lot of people who've been stuck in traffic for hours. Many of them live in those communities. They're just dying to get off the road to go see if their home is okay. They can't. So it's just ongoing panic and concern for a lot of people. Want to show you this. This was a house that exploded on Chickering Road in Lawrence. Utter devastation there. The debris from the explosion crushing a car in the driveway. It appears the explosion really just took out the entire side of the home. Of course, Paula, when you see a car in the driveway, you worry that someone may have been home, and you hope that they weren't at the time.
We have more pictures for you. Flames that were shooting out of this roof early on. This was one of the first images captured by our Sky cameras in Lawrence. This was just before 5 o'clock. This large multifamily apartment building burned, and 2 fire crews worked there to control the flames. So many of these fire departments were stressed in a short number of hours. No reports on how many people were home there at the time. And, of course, we have had these limited injury reports so far. But we are waiting at this news conference for an exact number of how many people from each community might have been injured this afternoon.
For a couple of hours, Sky Eye was just going from fire to fire. We followed so many homes across the area. Early on in the incident, we saw this fire just as it was beginning to catch fire. This was actually probably maybe 15 minutes into it when it really started to spread a little bit. Next thing you know, the fire was just... it engulfed the home, swallowed it up whole. They ended up putting foam on the home, trying to suppress the fire, but it does look like that was a total loss.
And that was the house that really told the story, that there just weren't enough crews to get everywhere.
There was nobody there at first, mainly because it was smoldering, probably as a small fire in the basement. Nobody noticed, and then all of a sudden the whole thing was engulfed. This was another incredible image. You can actually see the smoke that was billowing from these 3 communities on radar. You'll see those little blue blotches. That's the smoke coming from the fires in Lawrence, Andover, and in North Andover.
Okay. We do have an update from Lawrence General Hospital at this point, David. They have 6 patients in all there. They're saying that 2 of them are in critical condition. And so we know earlier that you and Lisa had been talking about the number of 3 injuries reported, 1 firefighter, 2 civilians. So now we're up to 6 patients. And, of course, we will have an update when this news conference gets underway. But the number of injuries and the nature of the injuries, we can imagine, will be heartbreaking.
So up to 6 now, 2 of them critical, and you can almost bet that they may have been in a home that not just had a fire, but also there was an explosion. There are several available shelters tonight that have been set up in the towns for people who have been affected. In Lawrence, there's the Partham Elementary School. North Andover is opening up the youth center for people there. That's on, I believe, let me grab my paperwork here. That's on Whittier Court. And in North Andover, you are asked to go to the high school there. They're also sending people, by the way, to the Wilmington Middle School for shelter as well. So not only are some of the other towns sending in their first responders, they're also sending in or asking or opening up some of their buildings to the people who've been affected.
We want to talk to Christina Rex, who's been on the phone off and on with us throughout the afternoon about what is going on. And Christina, there you are live for us. What's the latest?
David and Paula, we're here at 30 Whittier Court, Andover residents. If you need somewhere to go, that's the place. 30 Whittier Court is the Whittier Senior Center. And if you look right over here, the Salvation Army Emergency Disaster Services vehicle just showed up. They've been pulling out water bottles, Gatorade. They're bringing it all in for people. I did take a little lap inside, talked to some people inside. Not too many people, I'd say, in the dozens, but we did drive all around downtown. And, you know, as we spoke about earlier, I'm from here. I was evacuated from my home, and I was out on the street with all my neighbors before actually coming and being a part of the show and everything. And when I was talking to neighbors, a lot of people are hanging out outside. They've gotten in their cars and driven to their family members' homes in, you know, neighboring towns like Methuen and farther north. I know some people I talked to were heading to Salem, New Hampshire. So again, here at the shelter in Andover, probably about a few dozen people inside right now. We did talk a little bit to, I talked to an employee of this senior center, and I talked a little bit to some of the police officers as well. They said this is certainly an extra frightening situation for the seniors who are here regularly. They're here all the time, and it's a little frightening for them to have so many strangers come in here and take shelter in what's usually their home. I also spoke to a man who's lived in Andover for 35 years, and he said he has never seen anything like this in his 35 years here. I can attest to that as well. Grew up here my whole life. Very quiet town. It's certainly unlikely and really a strange experience for residents, and I know a lot of people we talked to feeling quite lost because they're all outside and they're all either in their cars or with their neighbors outside, not in their homes. They've all shut off their gas lines, those Columbia gas lines, but they can't watch what's happening on the news at times. They're frightened because they can't see it. So everybody's on their phones trying to find out exactly what's going on, as much information as they can. But again, Andover residents, if you need a place to go right now, 30 Whittier Court, that's the Whittier Senior Center here in Andover. It's right behind downtown near the Doherty Middle School.
All right, Christina Rex in Andover tonight at one of the shelters that's been put up. Again, the big headline that just came in moments ago is that Lawrence General Hospital is now saying that they're treating 6 victims and that 2 of them are in critical condition.
We had seen earlier this afternoon some firefighters who needed assistance. They really looked as though they were kind of hobbling coming out of some of these buildings overcome by smoke. So we'll get updated information just as soon as this news conference is underway. Our Liam Martin is there at the command center, as is Mike LaCrosse, and authorities will be updating the situation. David, we were also saying that people, for a time, certain parts of towns had the power shut off, others didn't. National Grid, which handles the electricity, has shut the power off now to all of these towns because, of course, the danger of a spark with gas in the air. And so it feels as though the situation, while it's under control right now, was so incredibly dangerous. We know the Red Cross is on the scene, the FBI is on the scene, NTSB has shown up because the scope and scale of this emergency is so significant.
And Liam Martin now has one of the Red Cross officials to talk about what they're going through and what they're offering to people. Of course, the Red Cross always does a tremendous job. Liam?
Well, David and Paul, I am here with Jeff Hall of the Massachusetts Red Cross. And speaking of scale of this, have you ever seen anything like this?
I haven't. This is unprecedented. I've lived in about 10 years in this area. Yeah, it's amazing. And we want to make sure people have some place to stay tonight. So we've set up some reception areas to start that process.
You said you've 5 shelters across these 3 municipalities. Where are those shelters? Can you walk us through?
We haven't set up shelters yet. The reception centers where people can come and we can evaluate if we're going to need to set up shelters. There's 2 in Lawrence, 1 in Andover, 2 in North Andover.
Can you tell us the addresses of it?
Sure. Lawrence is the Partham School at 255 East Haverhill Street in Lawrence. Arlington School at 150 Arlington Street in Lawrence. The Cormier Youth Center at 40 Whittier Court in Andover. The North Andover High School Fieldhouse on 430 Osgood Street. and the North Andover Middle School at 495 Main Street.
Can you talk about the extent of need? You said you're anticipating as many as 1,000 people showing up to these areas?
With as large as the evacuation is, I would say 1,000 is probably a pretty conservative estimate on what we're looking at. We're bringing volunteers right now in from all over the state and just to help people have something to eat and have something to drink since they're out of their homes.
What is the Red Cross doing right now? How do you respond to an incident that's this large and try to get help to as many people as possible?
The most important thing we're doing is setting up those centers right now. It gets people into the locations where they live so that they can kind of stay close by to listen to the evacuation orders from their first responders. And it's a cool place. Luckily, it's not that hot tonight, but it gets them out of the weather, gets them out indoors, and it gives them something to eat.
What do people at home, what can they do to help if they want to help?
I think the most important thing is listen to your first responders and stay out of these areas that have been evacuated. It makes their lives much easier to be able to respond to these incidents. And if you need assistance, come to those 5 centers.
Well, Jeff Hall with the Massachusetts Red Cross, thank you so much. Good luck tonight with the response. David and Paula, back to you.
Liam Martin live at the Command Center. Thanks so much. And really something to hear Jeff Hall there from the Red Cross, David, say this is unprecedented. I mean, I just think that there's sort of a sense that there are so many homes and so many people involved here. These public officials have to get together, wrap their arms around what the needs will be over the next 12 hours in the dark before they can move on with anything after that.
It's obviously not the first time that we've seen a gas explosion. It's not the first time we've seen a fire, obviously. But you never see them spread out over 3 communities, upwards of 70 all at the same time.
Yeah.
So
as the Mass State Police kept updating their map and the numbers were doubling.
The last number was a little bit different because it went from 23 confirmed explosions and fires to 39 confirmed explosions and fires. And then they said 70, but they also added in investigations of gas leaks in homes.
So this gives you an idea of what they were looking at across the 3 towns, huge area, all those different areas in which to respond. And of course, then the overarching concern that people might, as we were saying before, light a candle, turn a switch on, or open a window, and that might spark more. So that appears to be under control at this point because people are just out of their homes.
When you look at this map, upper right-hand side of your screen, there's that cluster of blue. That's near North Andover Center. The center of your screen, where there's a second cluster between the highway and the other major cluster there, that middle section is part of South Lawrence, Chickering Road, Springfield, some of those streets. Gary Brode is live on Chickering tonight. And Gary, not just a fire at the location where you are, but an actual explosion that seemed to take down an entire home.
Yeah, it definitely did. Yeah, here on Chickering Road, this is one of the most active areas. And I got to tell you, David, every 20 minutes or so we hear a group of fire trucks rushing by, or maybe we hear the sirens, and it brings a chill to your spine. You hope that it doesn't end in a situation like just you can see behind me here. With a home like that, yeah, it is a complete loss there. It was an explosion, we are told, but you can see right there, columns down to the side. The chimney is near the driveway at this point. Just a total loss to the home. I was told by police that there were a few people around the home. One person was taken to the hospital. We're not sure of the extent of his injuries, but you can see just how bad the home is at this point. We also talked to a teenager who came by just a couple hours ago because his friend lives in that home you're looking at right now, and he's been frantically trying to get a hold of him for hours now, and here's what he had to say. Who are you looking for?
For my friend.
He lives here?
Yeah, he lived there.
Where the explosion was?
Yeah. Yeah, where the explosion was.
What was your first thought when you saw that?
Is he okay? I don't care about the house with my friends, you feel me? That's crazy.
Have you tried to reach him?
Yeah, I tried plenty of times, yeah. And yeah, I don't reach him at all.
What do you make of this?
I don't know. We're gonna see what goes on from here. Hopefully he's okay.
I did mention this is one of the more active scenes around Lawrence right now because just a street down, also talked to a homeowner who his home also exploded. He says that his wife was in the house when it happened. The explosion started in the basement. Here's what he had to say.
When I came, I find out, well, actually, my wife gave me a call when I get out of work and says, there's a fire, there's an explosion around here. And when I got here, so that's what I found, two fire trucks working in my house.
Is everyone okay?
Everybody was okay. My wife was able to get out of the house, and everything is safe. So we really don't worry about any other thing.
In about the last hour or so, definitely smelled more smoke in the area, but we've also noticed that the electricity is out in this neighborhood. In the last couple of hours, we've also heard more State Patrol going throughout the streets, evacuating, going through on the intercom there, telling everyone to get out of their home. We haven't seen too many people in the neighborhood. I just saw a woman walking her dogs. Looked like she may have been going towards the command center, which we are very close to, maybe a quarter mile. In fact, I can see it from here. But right now, it appears that most of this area is evacuated at this time. We're live here in Lawrence. Gary Bro, WBZ News.
All right, Gary, thank you so much. And we have another live picture for you. This is the command center in Lawrence, where we are expecting public safety officials to come give us an update, let us know what people should know who have left their homes tonight, left the area, and of course we'll bring you that news conference live to you just as soon as it gets underway. But David, Mass State Police just tweeting out that because of the planned power shutdown, the Lawrence mayor is asking all residents of South Lawrence to evacuate their homes. So, you know, clearly the Massachusetts State Police, other police departments feeling the need to reiterate to people who have not left that they do need to get out of their homes until they get the situation under control. Andover police letting people know that due to the scope of the incident, people will see police agencies patrolling through Andover. This is just going to be an ongoing event until tomorrow. And you can see all of the various departments that have arrived there to assist if anything more comes up tonight.
You may wonder what the delay is. We don't know what it is, but my guess would be is that they're waiting for the governor, who did put out a statement earlier. I don't know where he was, but my guess is that on a story of this scale, the governor will be there soon, and perhaps that's when we will have this live news conference.
This is also good information for people. The MSPCA Nevins Farm in Methuen says they have mobilized an emergency staff and phone number for any animals in affected towns who need shelter. Obviously, if you go show up at a shelter at the senior center or the youth center, you probably can't bring pets with you or animals. And so anyone with an animal in need can either show up at Nevins Farm, which is 400 Broadway in Methuen, or there is a phone number that they've provided, which is 978-687-7453. Angel Animal Medical Center in Boston is also available for anyone affected, and that is at 350 South Huntington Avenue in Jamaica Plain, and their phone number, the phone number that we gave you before, rings to the call center. So, you know, for some people, you know, you got to think heading to Boston might be the way to go. You know, that area is so dense. There is such a traffic problem. If you can get out of that area and you need to get an animal to safety for the night or need to just get away, you know, to find shelter yourself, maybe it might be a good idea to head toward Boston.
I mean, Lawrence is a city of about 90,000 people.
And you
all
have
of
the
them
30,000 in North Andover, 30,000 in
Andover.
Andover.
Talking about 150,000 people.
It's huge.
And by the way, something that you pointed out moments ago, it was sort of interesting of how the evacuations went. At first it was, if you smell gas, get out. Then it was, if you have Columbia gas, get out. Then it became, if you're in South Lawrence, doesn't matter what you have, get out. State police at first asking people to leave, but now saying that they will have local officers going block to block to sort of tell people to get out. You know, as you mentioned, sometimes people say, hey, I have a pet, I can't go anywhere, I'm going to have to make sure I stay here. Or they say, yeah, I have no electricity, but I have a flashlight. I don't smell any gas. I'll stay here. People, by nature, don't want to leave their homes. Right. Maybe you have an elderly person that you're looking after. It's hard to move them. It's completely understood, but you also have to understand that officials, their number one job is to make sure that they keep you safe. And to keep you safe means getting you out of harm's way.
Christina Rex is in Andover. As Christina, as you were pointing out, you've lived there all your life, grew up there. Dan Roach lives in Andover and was telling us a little earlier how confused people were. They were out in the neighborhood sort of trying to help each other, turn the gas off, figure out what was going on. And, of course, the important message from police tonight, if the power's off, don't use candles.
Right, definitely don't use those candles. And exactly as you mentioned, that's what we saw a few hours ago when the sun was still up. You know, people rushing home from work and coming home to help neighbors turn off their gas. You know, that's not something you're always prepared to do, to turn off your gas in your home. And I know you were talking about the calls. The call we got said evacuate immediately and turn off your gas as soon as possible. Didn't mention, you know, smelling gas or anything. So that kind of came really early. That was right before 5 o'clock when we got that call. So where I am now is at the shelter that they've created in Andover. It's the Whittier Senior Center. Typically tonight it's a shelter for quite a few dozen people in there, but want to show you, showed you this before. The Salvation Army just showed up. We just spoke to some of them and they said they couldn't even imagine responding to something like this. Obviously never seen anything like this in the area. Really unusual situation, but also they were prepared to have to go down to the Carolinas for the hurricane, and you know, they were standing by to see if anyone was going to need relief there once those storms hit. Little did they realize they'd be coming to just neighboring towns. This truck in particular is from Fitchburg. I want to take you down a little bit towards where the shelter is. The police have asked, you know, us to not bring cameras inside, but there are quite a few dozen people in there, and the seniors who live regularly as well, and they're certainly a little bit frightened with everything. You know, right over here we have, this is the Town of Andover truck that's going on, and a bunch of Andover police here as well. As far as neighboring towns, and post in Andover a little earlier, which is at Andover High School, and we saw fire trucks and emergency crews from all over, Devens, Pepperell, Melrose, so many towns, and not towns that are close by, you know, really towns all over the state. Right here in front of the senior center, we actually spoke to a man who has lived in Andover for 35 years. He said he has never seen anything like this in his life. I want to listen to a little bit of what he told us.
I was called by the police and told to evacuate immediately. Immediately.
What goes through your mind when you hear that?
Well, when you hear gas, immediately, what went through my mind is I have a millennial son who lives at home. I got to get him out of the house, but he wants to get his iPad, he wants to get his Mac Air. He wants to I said, it's a gas explosion. Yeah, it's a gas explosion. We're going. We got to go. This is not negotiable.
So certainly talking a little bit about he certainly took the situation, you know, with a little bit of humor, but he was trying to get his son out of the house, fearing a little bit, not knowing what's coming. He is actually here still at the senior center, just kind of waiting to see what's going to happen. We have the generators here ready to go. And we actually have heard that they're going to be turning power off in town. I know you guys had mentioned that as well. They're going to be turning power off in town to kind of help with some repairs here. Live in Andover, Christina Rex, WBZ News.
Christina, thanks so much. And as Christina mentioned, I think a lot of people thought that all of our public safety officials would be looking toward the Carolinas today and tonight for how we could help. Governor Baker put out this statement saying that the governor is actively monitoring the situations in the Merrimack Valley and is communicating with first responders and public safety officials. The administration urges residents to heed instructions from local officials for important public safety announcements, including evacuations and spending gas usage. So, of course, the governor and his staff sort of looking at the big picture overall. Each of these towns, from the fire departments to every town board, is going to have to coordinate tonight about what happens next. So much. No school in these towns tomorrow. Senior centers and schools being used as shelters. So this is going to be a massive, massive undertaking.
And just thinking through things in my head, I'm pretty sure that when they turn gas back on, I'm pretty sure they need like a gas worker to go sort of house to house to make sure that everything is working correctly so that you don't have any more incidents. This is Columbia Gas, which is not the biggest gas provider in the area. I think National Grid probably would be, which, by the way, National Grid has, I think, about 1,200 workers locked out. So that's fewer people that can help out to the other gas company. But this is not going to be a one-day thing.
No.
This is going to be a couple of days. At the very least. Maybe schools will be back open on Monday. Fortunately, tomorrow is Friday.
And not a quick fix.
And then just, again, we've said it time and time again, just praying that nobody has been killed in this. We know the two people are in critical condition, but one of the homes we saw just absolutely
devastated,
destroyed. And you would guess that if someone was home at the time, they would be in rough shape. You pray that they weren't home at the time.
It's terrifying to see an entire chimney of a house crash down on the roof of the family's car in the driveway. I mean, that picture really brought it home. After seeing the fires, one right after the other, imagine trying to battle 35 fires, 18 of them blazing simultaneously. It's just a really overwhelming situation. And then, as you say, David, you think of every single family trying to deal with this. And there we just saw, a dog. That's a shelter in North Andover. And as we were saying, people need to know where to take their pets. All of these families out of their homes tonight have to have somewhere to go bring a dog or a cat, a bird. You don't know what they might have. So we do have the number for the MSPCA, and that is 978-687-7453. They say you can just show up at Nevins Farm in Methuen or Angel Medical Center in Boston to drop off a pet if you need care. And we've also had updates on injuries, and, the fear is that number will grow. We had initially heard 3 injuries, 1 firefighter, 2 civilians. That grew at Lawrence General Hospital to 6 people, 2 in critical condition.
And there is no number that is okay. There is no, one is, to hear one person was injured is awful. But we haven't seen, with so many explosions and so many fires, it was possible that early on you may have heard that there were, dozens of people rushed to the hospital. That wasn't the case, and we were mentioning earlier that at first, for a lot of these homes, it was a slow burn. It was, when you hear the word explosion, it was an explosion in a basement with a furnace, and then there was a small fire that allowed people to get out. Not all of the explosions were the explosions that take down a home. So they were fires like the one you're seeing on your screen now. So fortunately, it seemed, and when we were showing the pictures from Sky Eye, it seemed in most cases, the people were able to get out in an orderly fashion. They didn't look panicked outside. So the fact that there are 6 injuries is pretty remarkable when you talk about the scope of what we're looking at here. You're looking at a house there with it looks like the door blown right off.
In addition to injuries, as you say, awful, just there will be so much damage, so much for people to deal with. Let's get to Liam Martin, who's at the command center in Lawrence, because we know people have been waiting to get underway here. And as you've been talking to people, as you did there with Jeff Hall from the Red Cross, who called this unprecedented, Liam, what are others there saying to you about what happened there today?
Certainly no one, Paula, has seen anything like this. Again, more than 70 incidents of either explosions or fires in homes and buildings. And that number, Mass State Police say, is expected to grow. What's going on here at the command center right now is that we are awaiting an update from Lawrence officials, state officials, about what happened. How did this all start? We know there was some sort of explosion around between 4 and 4:30 today, and then a series of explosions and fires in homes that followed that initial explosion. We know of at least 6 injuries at this point, and 2 of them are critical injuries, and that number as well is expected to grow. At this command center, agencies from all across the state and into New Hampshire have started to converge on the area of Lawrence North Andover and Andover. They arrive here at the command center, and they are then dispatched off to wherever they might be needed. We know that in Andover alone, that's one town for which we have specific numbers at this point, there were 35 fires in that town alone. We suspect that there were more than that in Lawrence, because when Massachusetts State Police released their map of the clusters of these incidents, there was a big cluster of these incidents in South Lawrence in particular, and then you have North Andover as well. Thousands of residents across those three towns were ordered to evacuate their homes if they have natural gas coming into their homes. Schools have been canceled for tomorrow. And then, of course, you have just the destruction across those three towns to homes and buildings that will take months to clean up and fully deal with. That is the scene right now here at the command center. It's at the Showcase Cinema in Lawrence. We know Governor Baker is on his way here to this scene. That might be why we are still waiting on the press conference from officials. But as soon as they come out, there are a lot of questions to ask about just how many injuries, how many buildings, and how did this all start.
All right, Liam Martin, thank you so much. As we look at this huge parking lot, this is the Showcase Cinemas, as he mentioned there, just off of 495. And it's a huge parking lot. I think, if I remember correctly, this is where I used to go to the movies when I was a teenager. There's a parking lot on one side, other part of the movie theaters on the other side of the street. There's another parking lot there. So obviously a good spot for all of these different communities to come together. And we hope to hear from officials pretty soon.
Lisa Greshy is in North Andover, where we know she's been speaking with people in the shelter there. Lisa, I know you've been talking to people who must feel like they are really up in the air right now.
Paula, just so much confusion, and more people are showing up here to North Andover High School at this point, ready to spend the entire night here. Inside, they began to set up as fast as they could. They now have cots, and they are supplying food and water. Now, the one thing the Red Cross is trying to provide above all, though, is comfort. People do not know how their homes are. Some knew that there was a fire. Others just know their neighbors' homes were on fire, and some just got the call and left as soon as they could.
Well, they called us to let us know to get out. I shut off the gas downstairs to make sure, but I didn't want to take any chances.
The Red Cross is now preparing to help families who know that they've had a fire at their home through crisis control throughout the next couple of days, knowing that this is not just going to go through the night, that this could be days, if not weeks, of helping these families get through this very, right now, what's a confusing time. For now, reporting live here in North Andover, Lisa Greshy, WBZ News.
And Lisa, as you talk to people there, how are most people ending up there at the shelter? Are they folks who don't have friends or family in the area? Are they folks that plan on being there for a while? What gets them to the point where they decide that they want to use the local shelters? Because we know oftentimes people decide to sort of forego the shelter for friends and family and things like that.
David, what it really all comes down to is the traffic. If you ask people in the area, they say what is usually a 3-minute drive, it took them just over a half an hour just to get here to the high school. So what a lot of couples and families are doing, they're coming here until they can get in touch with other family to arrange something else. Some families are going as far as New Hampshire to get away from all this, but right now the shelter is their best option.
That's a great point. The fact that it's close by, they can get to it, and then they can make their long-term plans a little bit later in the evening. Lisa Greshy, great job there. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lisa. And, you know, the other thing, David, is a lot of times these days we're so fortunate in the weather department that we know when blizzards and hurricanes are coming. These shelters are set up days in advance. But you know that so many of these people just showed up at these makeshift shelters tonight, and they're probably not fully stocked with everything they need. There are probably basic supplies that are always kept at a school or the senior center, but it's got to be chaotic. It's got to be a little bit sparse this evening for these people that are making do. And hopefully the Red Cross will be able to help out with that. Cheryl Fiandaca was tweeting their update that these are just reception areas right now. They're going to have to evaluate and figure out what shelter they need to create. So there is still a lot of assessment going on tonight, and everything obviously isn't in place. This was just so unexpected.
Congressman Moulton just tweeted a few moments ago, Congressman Seth Moulton, that he has touched down in the area and that he will be up at the command center as soon as he can get there. He represents the 6th district, of which Andover and North Andover are both a part of. So he's rushing there to see some of his constituents as he's landed back in Massachusetts.
And you see it from all over. The Boston police tweeting that they will be sending officers to the area to help to assist first responders already there on the scene. This is really going to take a concerted effort of a lot of other communities and other cities throughout Massachusetts to send help. And you know, as the Red Cross, Jeff Hall was saying, you know, this is what they're there for. This is when people need them. So if you want to support the Red Cross, this is the good time to do it, when people are really in need. And so, as you were saying, this is going to call on National Grid and Columbia now to swarm these towns and figure out how to get these people back online.
We sort of had guessed that the reason why there was this long delay for the news conference was that they might be waiting for Governor Baker. And what do you know? Governor Baker has just arrived there on scene. So he is at the command center. My guess, just from seeing these type of things before, is that the news conference will probably begin very soon now that the governor is there. Liam Martin reporting that he has seen him there at the command center.
Yeah. And we hope that the governor will, you know, be able to kind of put into words for all of these people in these communities that people just are heartbroken for them. You know, their hearts go out to them, and that supplies will be made available. All of these services obviously will be there throughout the night, but that throughout Massachusetts, people will remember and won't forget that when you're talking about dozens and dozens of homes that have experienced explosions and fires, you know, individual families deal with insurance companies or what have you, but this is so massive. It's really going to take entire communities to go in and help in Lawrence, North Andover, and Andover. So our Liam Martin is standing by there on the ground. We have Mike LaCrosse there as well, gathering information. We assume that now that the governor has arrived, fairly quickly they'll be able to get this news conference underway. You know, so many communities are having to coordinate their efforts and their information. Now that the power is off, that is going to be one aspect of the night that the towns are going to have to deal with. No school tomorrow. And so, you know, they're probably sure they absolutely want to get the correct information out to people who will not be able to go back to their homes for at least a day or so.
I'd have to think that the power will be the first thing that is rectified. And that's only because it was shut off out of an abundance of caution to make sure that there was no spark that might set off another explosion. Once the gas situation is fixed, once they're pretty sure that there are no leaks, that the high-pressure gas main, as it was called, has been properly fixed, then I would guess that the electricity would be able to come back on. I don't think that that would be tonight, but perhaps tomorrow that would be the hope. But again, we're standing by and waiting. And I'm also wondering if, of course, Sky Eye is over the command center now. I'm wondering if they're still fighting that other fire. There was still one more fire in Lawrence at a multifamily home that they were still battling. You mentioned that 18 fires in Andover were put out. I don't know what the number was in North Andover. But as I mentioned earlier, you know, on a busy day in a quiet town like Andover, firefighters, if they get one fire, if they get a second simultaneous fire, that's kind of a crazy day. Today they had 18 fires going at one time.
They went right to 10 alarms.
And hats off to all of our first responders, our firefighters, our police officers, the people who are working inside the police stations, dispatching the crews, EMS, everyone who's been out there helping tonight. Our hats go off to you for working so hard in such a terrible situation.
It was really staggering when Eric Fisher called our attention to the fact that there was so much smoke over these three towns at one point. It was being picked up on radar, and he had the map of how significant that was. So this is the kind of work they were dealing with for hours upon hours from just before 5 o'clock. We understand the Andover Fire Chief is going to speak at a separate location, so we'll gather that information for you. Here he is.
our 911 emergency communications center started lighting up with multiple phone calls of multiple fires in this community. We were unaware for quite a while as to what was going on, and were notified that there was a potential of these fires being promulgated as a result of overpressurization of a gas main. We have not been able to confirm that. We have not yet spoke to anybody from Columbia Gas to confirm that, and we're waiting to get updated from them as we speak. As of right now, Andover has experienced 38 fires, active fires in this community. We've responded to over 17 additional gas leaks. We've had 4 injuries that were transported to local hospitals. 2 of those injuries were firefighters, and they sustained non-life-threatening injuries at this time. We also had 1 civilian that was injured with non-life-threatening injuries as well.
Have you ever seen anything like this, Chief? I mean, how can you summarize a night like this?
I've been in the fire service for almost 39 years, and I've never seen anything like this in my entire career. To sum it up, basically coming into town from a community just outside of here, responding back in, it looked like Armageddon. It really did. There were billows of smoke coming from Lawrence behind me. I could see plumes of smoke in front of me within the town of Andover. It just looked like an absolute war zone, and something that I've never experienced in my fire service career, and hopefully I don't have to experience it ever again.
Chief, what's the situation now? Can people go home? Should people not be in any homes?
Well, we had an additional dynamic added to the whole situation just probably within the last 45 or 50 minutes, where the power was cut by National Grid to some locations in town. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to open up some stations where people can go and stay this evening if they feel it's necessary to do so. We're also trying to remain active on social media with any updates to the local community. If people feel that they can stay home and they feel they're safe, the gas has been shut off, then certainly we would recommend that they shelter in place and wait for further updates either through social media or through your news media outlets.
So the gas has been shut off. There will be no more explosions.
No, the gas has not been shut off. We are still dealing with the possibility of gas still running through some of the mains in an overpressurized state. What I am saying is that if the individual residents have the ability and the knowledge as to how to shut down the gas to their individual homes, do so before you go back into the home, and make sure that there is no odor of gas inside that home before you occupy it again.
You said you're still waiting to hear from Columbia. What do you think about the responsiveness of this company?
Well, this is basically a very overwhelming, huge event that not only involves the town of Andover, but involves the town of North Andover and the city of Lawrence as well. So I am sure that their personnel is just as inundated as we are. We requested two task forces from the state fire mobilization folks through MEMA, which gave us an additional 20 pieces of apparatus above and beyond utilization of our 10-alarm running card. So at any particular point in time today, we had upwards of 50-plus pieces of fire apparatus, engines and aerial ladders. We had upwards of 20 ambulances in town, and they were all responding to different incidents that were occurring during the day. So this has been an overwhelming event. We immediately opened up our emergency operations center once we figured out that this was going to be an event that was going to be sustained for a period of time. And we are doing the best we can with not only our own resources, but the other resources that have come in from mutual aid and through the MEMA system.
Sir,
one or two more, guys.
When was the last time you spoke with Columbia?
I haven't spoken to Columbia today at all, personally.
Last question.
Sir, how are these gas fires different than things you're used to fighting? Are they more difficult?
They are more difficult in the fact that once you put the fire out and the gas is still flowing in that occupancy, it certainly could ignite once it finds another ignition source. So a little bit dangerous, but what happens is we try to disengage all of the gas that we possibly can in these buildings before we actually make an active firefight, interior firefight into the occupancies of structures.
Can you tell us how many homes were completely destroyed, or a lot of these minor fires? Can you kind of sum it up?
Many of them were minor fires. I can't really give you a dollar estimate as to how much damage was done as a result of them, but what I can tell you is this. We had companies out there that were responding to a building fire. They would extinguish the building fire, they would come outside, and they'd find the next building next door on fire as well. So quite a different experience than we're used to, and something that we'll be analyzing and looking at all the data for a long time. Right. This event is not over tonight. This event will probably go on from folks that have experienced something like this before for probably another week, maybe a week and a half, because all these occupancies that were affected have to be gone through, metered, checked, and then make sure that they're all cleared by Columbia Gas personnel as well.
All right, thank you guys. Appreciate it. That's it for right now.
Well, that was Andover Fire Chief Michael Mansfield saying he's been in the fire service for 39 years. I've never seen anything like this. It looked like Armageddon, like an absolute war zone.
The number we had been saying was that they fought 18 fires. He just said that they fought 38 fires. Was it 38?
Well, what it was 38 active fires. 18 of them were burning simultaneously.
So 18 at the same time, but
yes.
38 overall.
38 overall.
Throughout the afternoon. Another thing that I heard there that just stunned me. Columbia Gas, which I know is very busy right now trying to figure out what happened. The Andover fire chief says he hasn't spoken to anyone from Columbia Gas.
You think they would have been
yet?
In touch?
You think there would be even just a third-tier person from Columbia saying, hey, just so you know, this is what we're dealing with?
Perhaps it was because the fire chief himself was so busy. We'll find out, but we don't know. But he hasn't.
It kind of sounded like in his voice that he was a little. He was a little surprised himself that he hasn't heard from Columbia.
Interesting.
I don't know. Maybe I'm reading too much into that. It was something that surprised me in this situation. Not to paint Columbia as the sort of bad person in this. Well, it's just an interesting breakdown in communication.
And it goes to show, as the fire chief just said, this is an overwhelming event. He said firefighters would extinguish one fire, walk out of that building, and realize that the building next door was also on fire, and then they had to get underway there
because the gas is leaking. There's just one extra flame that pops up, and next thing you know, you have another fire as well. I just can't even imagine what they went through fighting 18 of them at the same time.
Also, an update again. These are injuries just from the Andover fire chief right now. He says they have 4 injuries, 2 firefighters, 1 civilian among those. He was saying that they were non-life-threatening injuries.
And we know
that the 4, 2 were firefighters.
The total number for Lawrence General was 6, and they had mentioned 2 people in critical condition. We don't know where those critical injuries happened. We do know that we have seen at least 2 homes that were blown to bits by an explosion. Although in one of the homes on Chickering in Lawrence, Gary Brode told us that there were people outside who said that the injuries didn't appear to be life-threatening. So there was that other home as well where the chimney had fallen onto the car below, that there is a possibility that there were major injuries there too. We just don't know.
Let's give you an update on what we're looking at here. This is the massive command center at the cinemas there in Lawrence, where everyone has assembled. Governor Baker has arrived. We just want to let you know that when Governor Baker begins his news conference, we are going to have it for you here. We are also going to simultaneously broadcast the governor's remarks on WBZ. So that will be happening just as soon as this news conference gets underway. And we'll see, David. Perhaps the governor has had contact with Columbia Gas. Perhaps not. We'll find out what the update is from the company.
So we're about 4.5 hours into this. Oftentimes the information is still fairly scarce at this point. Oftentimes the information that come out in these news conferences, these initial news conferences, are more about what people can do in the moment. So expect to hear about people still being evacuated. And now we are going to head over to Channel 4 in just a moment as Governor Baker moves up to the And good evening to you. We are about to get the very latest from Governor Baker on the major emergency in Lawrence, Andover, and North Andover, where there were dozens of explosions and fires because of a gas problem. Let's listen in.
From those gas leaks earlier this evening in North Andover, Andover, and in Lawrence. In a minute, you're going to hear from Andrew Flanagan, who's the town manager in Andover, and Andrew Mailer, who's the town manager in North Andover, and Mayor Dan Rivera in Lawrence, who will speak specifically to the public safety issues and the immediate concerns in their communities, which is really what we're focusing on at this point in time. This is still very much an active scene. There'll be plenty of time later tonight, tomorrow morning, and into the next day to do some of the work around determining exactly what happened and why and what needs to be done to deal with that. But the focus in the short term is to make sure that we do everything we can to provide shelter for people who need shelter, to provide safety in the communities that have been directly affected by this, and to speak with the folks at Columbia to make sure that everything we're doing and they're doing is going to ensure that these communities remain safe overnight and into tomorrow. With respect to public safety, there's a coordinated effort that's currently going on between the local police departments in each of these communities and the state police to ensure that we have officers and troopers stationed in appropriate sectors across all three communities, and especially ensuring that with the power off, we have people to make sure that traffic areas, heavily traveled traffic areas, now and through tonight into tomorrow, have somebody there to make sure that with the absence of lights, we don't have accidents or issues associated with that. And in addition, to make sure that they're located in key commerce and residential areas to simply make sure that everything is safe and calm throughout the course of the night and into tomorrow morning. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mayor Rivera.
What are you thinking right now?
I'm going to turn it over to Mayor Rivera. He's going to speak on behalf of Lawrence. I'm then going to ask Andrew Mailer to speak on behalf of North Andover and Andrew Flanagan to speak on behalf of Andover. This is still an active scene. We're going to spend a lot of time talking to each other over the course of the next few hours. But right now, I want these folks to have a chance to talk to the people in their communities. Mr. Mayor?
Thank you, Governor. First and foremost, be clear that things that happened in Lawrence today happened south of the river. So if you live south of the river, you should have evacuated. If you live north of the river, right now there have not been any incidences, despite you might smell gas or I've heard of something different. There is no issues north of the river. We're asking people that have not yet evacuated, please evacuate to the north. We did have multiple fires, multiple explosions during the day. Our firefighters have been supported by tons of mutual aid from communities I have yet to realize, but our fire chief and the rest of the public safety staff, they're not here with us right now because they are working. They're making sure that every street, every community, every neighborhood is safe. The police are deployed in the intersections where, because the lights are going down, and they've been the lights have to be turned off because the gas situation still has not been fixed. So we're going to make sure that it's as safe as possible as we figure it out. We immediately set up 2 shelters at the Partham School and at the Arlington School. That's on Arlington Street in Lawrence, and Partham School is on East Haverhill Street in Lawrence. If you cannot get out of the city, or if you have any questions, you should dial 211. We're using that as an information place. If you can't get out of your neighborhood and you need to get there, call 211. We'll tell you which is the closest location to get a bus. We have buses from the MVRTA, from the MBTA, and communities across the Commonwealth have come to support us in that effort. As soon as if those two shelters overflow, we will have a third one open right after that. Lawrence Public Schools is closed tomorrow, so do not send your children to school tomorrow as we figure this out. There is no expectation as of right now that people will be able to get back into their houses this evening. So if you're out of your house, stay away from the properties until we have made it safe for everyone. Again, the stuff with Lawrence is still, and I know there's been some conflicting tweets. Even if you're a gas customer in North Lawrence, there's not an issue. This is all South Lawrence. I got to take 2 seconds to thank all the folks that have been helpful, all the mutual aid. Every state rep, every state senator that's been with us, talking to us from all across the board, have helped us a ton. The governor's office, MEMA, FEMA, and we even got an email from the White House. People have been reaching out to make sure that we're okay. The reality is Lawrence is a very resilient community. We're going to be okay. Everybody's going to band together. And tomorrow during the late daylight hours, get back to work. And at the end of the day, we'll get over this one too. Andrew Mailer.
Do we have an idea on numbers at all?
Thanks, Mayor. Well, appreciate it. Just want to follow up what the mayor said. This is an active public safety event. It's impacted the town of North Andover beginning early this afternoon. To date, we have approximately 12 to 14 houses that were directly impacted by the events. Because we have not yet been able to identify a clear geographic area that have been affected in North Andover, we have communicated with all of our residents that if they have gas service, they should evacuate from their home. We're operating a shelter out of the North Andover High School. We have resources there, including the American Red Cross. We do also have transportation resources that are being provided by the bus company, our school bus company. We have also closed school for tomorrow, so the public schools will be closed. Please continue to stay aware of the circumstance. We are trying to narrow the impacted area, become more aware of the impacted area so we can help return folks to the home as soon as possible. As the mayor said, we do not yet have a timeline. People should expect this is going to be
Gopi's found a way to keep her receipts tidy, even when nothing else is.
Snap and sort your expenses with QuickBooks and find on average $4,628 in tax savings. QuickBooks, back from you.
Oh, creepy. And a mind of its own. Shall we?
Seriously? God, I hate pumpkins.
The house with a clock in its walls.
Bad kitty! Use the litter box!
Rated PG.
Belle's a real climber. In her lifetime, she'll scale miles of furniture. That's why she needs a tailored recipe from Iams to help her reach new heights. Iams, who I am.
Many long hours and sleepless nights ago, Jane began her engineering career. This is the moment it takes off. Spectacularly. Upload your resume on Indeed.
Dove gives you fashion-ready underarms so you can wear anything, from athletic tops to zebra dresses and everything in between. Enjoy 48-hour protection and softer, smoother underarms with Dove antiperspirants.
Jerusalem, Tel Aviv. Vacation beyond belief. Book your trip now.
Okay, I'll admit I didn't keep my place as clean as I would like because I'm way too busy. Who's got the time to chase around dirt, dust, and hair? So now, I use heavy-duty Swiffer Sweeper and dusters. For hard-to-reach places, Duster makes it easy to clean. It captures dust in one swipe. Ha! Gotcha! And new Sweeper heavy-duty cloths lock away twice as much dirt and dust. It gets stuff deep in the grooves other tools can miss. You know what? My place is a lot cleaner now. Stop cleaning. Start Swiffering.
It only takes a second for an everyday item to become dangerous. Tide Pod's Child Guard Pack helps keep your laundry pack safe and your child safer. To close, twist until it clicks. Tide
and the storm surge, and that's why they're getting reports of some flooding in New Bern, and one of the television stations there is now seeing flooding, and they're seeing some serious flooding as well. So this is the other aspect that we're going to be dealing with, and one that we are certainly going to be watching very, very closely. So I'm going to toss it back over to Randy.
Thank you very much, Scott. We're going to turn now to a phone interview with Tom Collins. He is the Pender County Emergency Management Director, where they've issued a mandatory evacuation for residents. You know, some areas are without power. The storm surge, of course, has crashed over the island. So Tom is going to join us live now with what's going on and what's happening there. So Tom, thank you for talking with us. I'm sure you're very, very busy. Tom, this is Randy Aldridge with WWAY News. We're talking with you about what's happening in Pender County. Can you describe what you're seeing at this time?
Well, here in Burgaw, we're not seeing a great deal, mostly a little bit of wind and rain, but the worst is definitely at the beaches. It's where it's picking up in intensity a little bit. So it's going to get to a point to where we'll have to stop emergency services operations once it reached about 45 sustained.
So, Tom, tell me what is concerning you the most about this storm?
Well, you know, on the onset several days ago, you know, it being a you know, catastrophic-looking type storm at 140, 150 mile-an-hour winds, but now the biggest concern now is the rainfall amount. You know, we've been, you know, with the forecast center, River Forecast Center, and looking at possibility of, you know, a Floyd type event, maybe even a little bit worse than Floyd. So that great concerns for Pender County residents, especially along the Northeast Cape Fear River and the Black River, which would, you know, is our problem areas where, as far as river flooding goes. But this amount of rain, just even low-lying areas are going to fill up, like the ditches along the roadways, this low-lying areas. You could even see inundation in the homes that are not even in a floodplain, this amount of rain. So that could give us some issues. We do have some resources we've asked for from the state, swift water type resources. So we have them in place here, plus our crews that we have stationed at our fire departments and EMS buildings. And so everybody's ready to respond. So once we get to a point to where it's not safe to do any type of operations, we have to shut down. But what puts us in a problem is the duration. You know, as long as we can get it below 45 so we can get out and operate safely, then we'll be able to get out. But we encourage residents to stay put. This is going to be a long time of winds and rain, so just be patient. We know we warned people here several days now to be prepared for this thing. So this is what we've been talking about for the last 3 or 4 days.
So, Tom, we know you guys already have planned to set up triage locations in Pender County. Can you tell me about that?
Well, this was due to in the plan for the hospital was to shut down. So it sort of puts us in a bind a little bit by doing that. So
Our volunteers do is just listen to people's stories and let them talk it out. Generally, that's what people need in a situation like this. They need to tell their story, and we can better know how to help them. If we do open shelters, we try to keep at least a portion of our shelters pet-friendly. We understand that it's hard separating a family from their pets, so we try to make allowances for those in some of our shelters. So that's something we're